back layer by layer. Yeah, we gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah, we gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah, we gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah, we gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah, we gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah, we gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah, we gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah, we gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah, we gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah, we gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah, we gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah, we gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah, we gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah, we gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah, we gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah, we gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah, we gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah, we gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah, we gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah, we gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah, we gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah, we gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah, we gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah, we gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah, we gon' take this slow.
Can you hear me?
We just gon' peel it back layer by layer.
I can.
All right, cool.
All right, so we are just live, and I guess we are starting. Well, I think that the way that I organize this is actually by what's it called, alphabetical. So I'm gonna have to look at what the actual order of divisions are.
I can walk you through them.
Okay.
I can walk you through them.
Actually, that might be even a good way to like do the hierarchy beforehand.
Yeah. Oak. Oak is first.
Oak is first. So we are. So okay. So let's go through. So we are looking at Oak of Legorva Janine
Legorva Janine, maybe Janine
versus
I
Infamous
don't know.
Cupcake. What division's next?
After Oak is Obsidian, which is a brand new division that looks cooler than the higher divisions and kind of makes me want to get demoted a little bit.
You're gonna have to
Because
get
it's black and
demoted a lot of bit. In order
If
to
I
get
if I lose all my games, if I get shut out over and over, I'm pretty sure they'll let me.
an admin demotion.
Yes, absolutely.
We haven't had one of those yet, actually. We've had a lot of administrative promotions, but I like the idea of just administrative demotion.
Yeah. It's like, well, okay, you're not just losing, you look really bad. So this is really for your own good, you know. And besides, Obsidian's cool looking. So anyway, Iron's after that, then Copper, Bronze, and then the standard Silver, Gold, Platinum, Diamond. And we're gonna go in in that order, from oak to diamond.
Alrighty. Well, because we are talking about how we're gonna be trying to figure this out as we go along. I guess we should just start.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, actually, let me see if I can. Oh, I bet I can get the assets up though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because actually that would be good because we're gonna be on each of these players for a while. So actually having their names would be nice.
The scoreboard, little superfluous.
Right.
They go up 1-0, and then we immediately erase the scoreboard and start over.
That's true. I might. Yeah, I'm just gonna have to keep the scoreboards at 0 at this point. And then so okay, first we have. I just said it. Oh, that's right, Ligorber.
Let's just say LG.
The infamous LG. Okay,
Infamous
LG.
LG. MLG, Mr. LG. MLG. That's what it should be. And infamous Cupcake, which is hard to understand but much easier to pronounce.
Do we know their countries? Might as well get that.
I know Mr. LG is US. I'm pretty sure Cupcake is as well, but yeah. Which games are you casting? They're asking. One game from each division, curated so that in every case it's either the division leader or one of the people near the top. I think it might be the division leader. Mostly an emphasis on strong spy play, but not really curated much beyond that. We're just going to kind of compare different ways of playing across divisions. And this is sort of an experiment, so, let us know what you think at the end, and we'll see how it goes.
What do you think about casting mode versus not casting mode? I guess casting mode?
Yeah, I'll go with casting mode.
Casting mode, and then we go back if we want to talk about something afterwards. Yeah? Okay.
Sounds good. Yes,
Okay.
we are casting one of your games, Noob, actually.
Ooh. Oh, good. Yeah, actually, I didn't even look at what games we were casting for my division because
Noob's doing pretty well, so he's in there. Yeah, I picked one of his.
Nice. Well, that'll be good research anyway. Okay, so we are starting in on gallery, and so normally at this point we kind of just like get into it, but right now I kind of want to talk about how gallery has appeared to be a relatively popular pick in the lower leagues, much more popular than at the higher leagues. Maybe that is my weird read on it, but I just feel like I see it more when I'm noticing the casts. I see a lot of gallery in the lower leagues. I don't see as much of it in the high leagues.
No, I agree, and people have remarked on it, and I don't have a good theory as to why. I'm tempted to say that it's just weird, random things like the people we've happened to pick early on have picked it. Maybe we'll have a better sense at the end of the season, but because right now I can't really come up with a good guess as to why that would be. My experience is that newer spies in particular don't love gallery. You feel exposed even though you have a lot of occlusion, and it's really hard to pace, which is the number one thing new spies struggle with, is pacing and judging just how far there is to walk from mission site to mission site, which trips up even the best spies on gallery. So I don't understand it, and I'm tempted to write it off to random noise for now, but it's something to keep an eye on for sure.
I pretty much agree with that. And also one thing that I'm going to be referencing, not all the time, but I'm going to be using this nomenclature kind of going forward, is the threat versus suspicion distinction, which has, in the collective minds of people in SpyParty, that distinction has existed for a long time, but we haven't bothered to name it really and really like nail down a term for it. So I'm going to put the SpyParty fans article written by Ponib up in the chat because I think it's really important that we just actually name things, because then already I think there's been a lot of great discussion that's coming out of it that really we were having around in the periphery of discussions, but we weren't really directly talking about.
Yeah, it's really important to clarify what you mean by these things. What does it mean when you say someone is suspicious, right? Does it mean they're actually doing things, or does it mean you just think they're a person, a human? Because those are not the same things. You can think someone's a human and also think they're not going to finish missions. So the distinction between those two becomes really important. For people who don't have time to read it or want to watch the cast and read it afterwards, the basic premise is that a character is threatening if they look like they are doing or could be doing missions, and they're suspicious if they're acting, well, human-like in your estimation. And that's not the same thing, right? Bad pathing is suspicious, but it's not threatening because it's not a mission. Whereas going to center statues is not really exactly suspicious. AIs will do it. It's a little suspicious, but it's threatening. It's a mission complete potentially. So maybe it can be both, right? And I really like particularly the distinction Noob makes at the very beginning of the article, which is probably the single most important thing in it, which is that what's threatening is always the same, but what's suspicious will vary from person to person.
Very much agreed. Okay. Well, As far as when we're gonna be pausing, I don't really know. I guess one of us just says
we'll just wing
pause or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So we are starting with LG on
LG.
on Mom and or Teal or Crazy Eyes or whatever, and then Infamous Cupcake as Spy. Starting in 3, 2, 1, go.
And before the entire 2-hour cast is arguing about what to call this character, because I have very strong capital O opinions about that.
All right. So oh man, I'm having to fight the urge to just do the play-by-play. But really, what's more important is looking at what we're doing. So right now, we are kind of
Well, actually, what's
time.
most important is the overlay.
Oh yes. Oh wow. Yeah, that's very
The
important.
second most important thing is general strategy and pacing.
I guess the overlay is important.
It's a really slow cast. We're gonna analyze the whole game and then show it to you.
Oh, I need to actually change it to we are in oak, correct? Bamboo was
are.
abolished or whatever, I guess.
Cut down. Yes. Machete stuff. We took a machete to bamboo. And there's a low light. Okay, well,
Let's
I didn't know
pause.
that when I picked it. Yeah, let's pause.
All right, so let's look at that for a second. I do actually want to put up the division for a second, and then I might as well choose.
Yeah. So this is really standard. I actually would not have picked this game if I'd known. It's really funny to do this right off the bat, but it's still worth analyzing, maybe if not the whole game, certainly this one decision and what the character does afterwards. So at around 3 minutes, Teal, and I insist her name is Teal, starts to go outside on gallery, sees, quote unquote, sees that the conversation is full. AIs will do that. They will make up their mind about whether or not to actually enter the conversation right after that little turn outside a gallery, right? Back in the day, you remember this, and anyone who's been playing, I think, for more than like maybe a year and a half, 2 years, maybe a little longer, remembers that doing this used to be an immediate hard tell. If you stopped outside a pad, maybe there was a couple briefcase things, right? A couple of small exceptions. But basically, if you missed a pad, it was a hard tell, period. They never stopped. It was beeline. You had to keep moving, even if the path was ridiculous, even if you bounced off someone, that's still better than stopping, because stopping is death. And that made pathing really, really scary. It's much less scary now, because now AI will actually do this. They will stop when they approach a conversation and realize it's full for whatever reason. And you can still screw it up, but it actually has made the game feel a lot more strategic as Spy, as opposed to like this high wire act where if you ever bump the key the wrong way, you're just dead, right? Especially because that stuff was easier to see on old art. So now you have the opposite thing here, where AIs will do it, and instead of getting shot for doing a move like this, the character actually gets low lit for mimicking the AI so well.
Yes, exactly. And I think that one of the most important things about what you're saying is it shifted the pathing etiquette away from obvious wrong things to subtle wrong things. Because I'm not actually sure that's totally legal the way that it was. But if I am sniper at the time, I don't know enough resources. First of all, I don't have enough etiquette knowledge to parse that out. And I'm also not going to probably spend that much attention on it, because otherwise I'm missing all my other sniper activities.
Yeah.
And
it's not that hard to mimic either, right? I mean, like, that's not, out of all the AI things you can mimic, like crazy bouncing or whatever, right? That's probably one of the easier ones if you really put in an effort.
Right. I like, for example, when this is happening, I'm not sure if it's technically legal, because the path, nothing really seemed to have happened when they got out there. There seems to be the I know that Zero talks about sometimes the outer circle range, and it is around there where there's like a larger invisible circle outside of the CC. I'm not going to talk about this one too much because I don't know enough about it, but that's when the AI start making decisions about where they go into the circle. They don't know where they're going to go in the circle until they reach that invisible outer circle. And so there may be something about what LG did that was technically illegal, but like we said before, it's probably not something that this particular sniper is going to focus that much on, unless they're very, very etiquette heavy sniper. Also, that takes a lot of resources. It's not like it used to be where if I saw someone stop outside a conversation, you're right, it was reflexive, it was automatic. There was almost no circumstance it wouldn't be the case, but now you'd have to really think about why it'd be the case.
Right. And it's not just that it's pretty easy to replicate, and that you will see AIs do it in almost any gallery replay you care to look at, which means that if you study gallery at all, if you're studying AI at all, you will notice it. It's not like some weird edge case like on pub or something, right, where you could study a bunch of pub replays and not notice it if you're trying to learn about the AI. If you're trying to learn about the AI and you load up a couple gallery replays, you will see this move. So it's So it's a very risky thing to low light for because it's very reproducible. It's very easy to discover for yourself. And here's the big one for me, it's not like an idling low light where you're like, okay, maybe this is the spy, but they're going to have to rush because they've wasted so much time or something like that, right? They're behind. Their pacing is bad right now. So maybe they'll get away with stuff, but it'll be much harder for them, even if they start doing stuff immediately when I low light them, which they won't be able to guess anyway because idling low lights are not obvious, right? It's not like a green purloin and then you rush outside and maybe you can guess your low light. Idling low lights can happen at any point. So in this case, it doesn't even take very much time to do this. So I would say this is like in basically every respect, the riskiest kind of low light you can give. I would only do this low light if I were studying my opponent in depth and I just saw, wow, they just don't do anything like this. They never fish for low lights with this kind of stuff.
Agreed. And I'll probably tie it off before I go too much further, but I do want to say this is one of the reasons why I like parsing out vocabulary, because it's an anti-suspicious low light, not an anti-threat low light, if we're already going to jump into that sort of discussion. Because
it's zero threat here, right?
Exactly.
It's zero threat.
Well,
yeah.
Sorry, even more specifically, it's if highlights are suspicion or threat, broadly speaking, obviously there's education and whatnot, then lowlights are anti-suspicion or anti-threat. Anti-threat would be someone that hangs out in one conversation the entire game and never gets anything done. Anti-threat lowlight versus anti-suspicion lowlight of they just do something in an AI-like way, but it doesn't really cost them much time, which is exactly the situation we're talking about.
So that's interesting because I would say idling in a conversation a long time is sort of both. It's something an AI would theoretically do because they're not in a rush. They're killing time at a party. I agree that it's more low threat than low suspicion, but it is both, right? Because AIs don't care whether or not they're idling or not.
Right.
I will say that it's a little weird for them to stay in one place. If anything, that's actually a really interesting question. If someone stays in a conversation for like a minute and a half straight, particularly if let's say you've missed a time ad, is that more or less suspicious? Because AIs, again, don't care whether or not they're suspicious. They don't care if they waste time. They don't care about any of that. So does that look more, if you time ad and then someone's in a conversation for like 2 straight minutes, is that more or less suspicious? Because that's what you'd expect the spy to do if they're fishing for a low light or trying not to be noticed. Whereas an AI would, they tend to move around a little more than that.
I have so many opinions on this. Like,
It's probably not even an answer, right?
Right. Well, no. But the exact topic you're mentioning, after time ad is being in one conversation and just hanging out there, not suspicious or suspicious, because sometimes there'll be the time ads that are trying to flex up for a low light, where you're trying to earn a low light, and you're also trying to muddle the lowlights that they might give for inactivity, which is great. I think that spies will often maybe overvalue the ability now to idle and fish for a low light, when I think the real value of getting away with a time ad that is caught is
nerf the idle low lights.
Exactly. You basically take away that from them, and if you're playing into trying to get that idle low light, you've just polluted the water for trying to get those idling lowlights. So you should just lean into it. You know that you've made the entire party a little bit more suspicious, and then just on net, that's the big thing you gain from it.
Yeah. Let's say you calculate that a spy's not going to be able to finish on ballroom if they waste a minute and a half in one conversation, right? If you miss a time ad, now you have to bump that up to 2+ minutes, right? If your math is right to begin with, because the 45 seconds are free now, to some degree. So it throws off all that. So in some sense, you should be kind of keeping busy. On the other hand, we also make fun of people for time adding into a rush, because that can seem really silly sometimes, right? You also want to use it. Normally, I think you want to use it, but I think the way you want to use it is in watching the party and making like soft tail progression rather than like, I'm going to time add and then rush a swap or something. Like that's leaning into it too much, maybe.
Yes, no, exactly. And obviously we could talk about this forever. Let's keep on going with the game because we are 30 seconds into it. But this is exactly what this is for, though. So totally happy to keep going with it.
And I also think it's like there's only going to be so much to say about the rest of this game too, because we're just talking about the general nature of fishing for lowlights, which presumably will not come up again in the same game. But jumping ahead a little bit, I'm actually going to take off casting mode because now with the low light, we kind of want to see what they do with it, right? And I noticed that at around, let's see here, 243, just a really good bug that would be barely visible if they weren't low lit, but is basically completely invisible now that they are.
243? Okay, so...
I mean, I'm looking right at it with the low light, and you can't even really see it.
It's a pretty good... I think it might be a pretty good bug, even just regardless. Well, obviously with the hand, you can't really tell. But not only that, Weird, funny circumstance is if Cupcake was the type of player that highlight ambassador, a low light on a highlight might be more apparent, but it's low light on low light, and it's impossible.
That's a great
to catch,
point.
right?
That's a great point. So I've talked to people about this. Some people just leave the ambassador alone. Some highlight the ambassador. That's what I normally do. Some people low light them. And I understand the logic of low lighting the ambassador, which is that it actually probably is the single most easy way to catch a bug on the ambassador if it's coming from someone who isn't low lit. So part of it is based on how likely are you with your low lighting strategy to low light the spy. Because if you low light the spy, you're never going to catch that bug now.
Right.
Whereas you might catch it otherwise.
Yes, exactly. So, see, I highlight the ambassador, but I basically don't have any strategic reason for it. I have just trained my brain to ignore lowlights. I do not have flexible lowlights most of the time, right? So, but I'm also really good at ignoring lowlights. Like I just don't look at them. Then that's
right.
Sort
it
of
is
a
a skill.
thing.
It's a skill to screen them out. It absolutely is. Like just cut down the visual noise. Don't look at them. And if you want to look at them, that's fine. But there's a cost. So if you've decided, like you say, if you've decided I am ruling out lowlights, they are dead to me, right? Then low lighting the ambassador means you're going to forget to check on them a lot.
Exactly, right. So the fun thing about the highlight low light thing on ambassador is that it's very particular to the sniper's subjective play, right? Because I like the idea of low lighting the ambassador because it makes highlights stand out even that much more against the ambassador. And there have been some times where the hand of someone poking through the ambassador is hard to see because the outline of the hand, it's got that white outline that literally kind of bumps up against it. And so and then if like the ambassador's hand is moving, especially this will be like Taft a lot. Taft's hands move all the time and they have this white outline, so sometimes a hand poking through kind of looks like Taft's shuffling of hands.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just kind of jumping around now because after the bug, they sort of just hang around for a little bit and then purloin. And the funny thing is I can't actually tell whether or not they suspect the low light. I mean, obviously you do that stop at minimum to kind of reduce a little heat and you're hoping maybe you get a low light. But I just think the decision is so interesting because this is the first game. This is Oak, right? Like this is Oak for crying out loud. Yeah. Like there are a lot of good players at low level. So I'm not like, oh, Oak, I mean, geez, there are plenty of Oak players who just in a random set could beat you or me, right? Of course. I'm just surprised that they expect this, right? That's the level they're working on, where one player thinks this is worth doing to maybe get a low light, and the other thinks, I agree. Like, not only, I can imagine, like, an under-promoted Oak player, maybe they're one of those players who joins, right? And they play like 2,000 games in their first month. We know these people, right? They play way too much during their first season. So by the end of the season, they should clearly be like 2 or 3 divisions up. That makes sense to me. That makes sense they'd be doing high-level plays. The weird thing is that they would expect their opponents, who maybe haven't done that, or at least some of them who haven't, to recognize these like low-light fishing moves and reward them for it. Because a new player is not generally going to low-light you, right? There's nothing you can do about that. The only way you get a low light off like a brand new player is a banana split, in my experience. Like they won't do anything else for that part, for the most part. Right. I mean, sometimes brand new players will shoot you for looking at your watch, because they don't realize that it's not necessarily a time ad. I realize we're well past that point, but what's fascinating me is not that they're handing out low lights or not that they're trying stuff, but that they're trying stuff with the expectation of getting the low light. So a player in Oak knows to do this, decides to do this, and the other player is watching for it and rewards it. Like, that's ridiculous. Stop it, you guys. Like, stop being so good. This is stupid that they're playing at this meta level in Oak.
Yeah, and what's fascinating to me is, and first of all, I totally agree. This is a very interesting game we happen to choose because for more than like 3/4 of the game, the only non-cast low light is the spy. It's the only one. Only Duke gets knocked down to a low light for the same thing, by the way. And actually done pretty similarly. It makes me think that LG actually did a pretty convincing job because it looks nearly the same. Although there is something weird where Papa's spot in that. I'm in the Sniper 4-6 spy. 130 is the actual timeline thing. I'm at 130. And then there is some crowding going on at the conversation. What's funny to me is that the most AI-like one to me is actually Papa, in a weird way. Although maybe it kind of maybe looks like a spy thing, but Papa doesn't get a low light for it. But just like some weird crowding that happens in there where Twin just completely blocks and like slithers in front of Papa Danger.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to jump ahead a little bit to the purloin because I think that's really the only other thing worth analyzing. And what's crazy to me, so you see Disney's the one who's going to get shot here in the end. We'll just, if you're okay, just jumping ahead.
Yeah.
He's going to get shot here in the end. And I'm trying to reconstruct why it happens. He's in the conversation on the sniper's clock at 43 seconds. And he's got a drink. And he walks away. And then he drinks a little bit. And then he starts to walk out. And he's out of conversation during the banana bread. The banana bread that's going to distract from the purloin. So he gets low lit a little while afterwards. He cannot be the spy. They see the purloin afterwards, and that's when they start to rethink things, bump him back up to a highlight and shoot him. Which is interesting. Like, he's not a good frame target in any sense of it. But it's just, they're worried. I think what they're worried about is that someone has done a green purloin or something and then walked outside. Because that's a very common thing on Gallery. Especially with an early green purloin. I'd say it's less common with a late green purloin like this. But if you hit an early green purloin like in the chaos of Gallery, it's very common to walk out front of the statues or something. Because the odds that you'll get a low light if they didn't see the reject are just really high. Because area-based purloin low lights are super potent on Gallery. People will miss the purloin sometimes early on, but they'll be very confident like it wasn't anyone outside or it wasn't anyone inside or whatever, right? So if you are out front when they notice the purloin in Gallery and they didn't see the reject, there's a decent chance you're just going to get low lit. It happens way more than on other maps.
So I'm going to take a guess here. I think I know exactly why Disney gets shot. Sniper does not notice the green time ad until the beeps start being slow. So right at 30 seconds, the green time ad is still going from before. The beeps are going to start.
Good call.
And then they look out. They see Disney at the front, and they think that they just had a timeout.
Oh, right? That is so okay. So I'm so glad you noticed that. I definitely missed that. But here's why that's super cool, right? Because this actually ties back into what we were just saying. So why are they willing to take someone who's low lit for being out of conversation on a banana bread? Why are they willing to bump them back up for a potential time ad? I'll tell you why. Because as we've already talked about, their lowlights are not hard lowlights. Mm-hmm. They hand them out for soft things. They hand them out for pathing. If they hand them out for pathing, they are actually not confident that any given lowlight is not the spy. So even though Walt was out during conversation, he's a hard lowlight, he gets bumped back up because they obviously can't remember which lowlights are hard or soft for the most part, right? Maybe you'll remember one, maybe you won't, but you're not expecting to. So the fact that their lowlights are soft and hard means that a hard lowlight gets bumped back up and then shot.
Yes, and
that's the cost.
We've talked about this, and I say we, I usually mean the SpyParty community at large, but also we particularly have talked about this, about the fluidity of lowlights and like how that is such a weird and interesting trade-off where we don't know where people will end up in the future. We don't know where it's if people have a good enough memory to remember their specific lowlights, that seems to be the best, right? If you can remember which lowlights are hard and which lowlights are soft, obviously do it. That's impressive. I can't do that.
But you can't.
Right, exactly,
like,
right.
I'm like, we're talking about this hypothetical first. Like, if you can do this, it's like, yes, if some hypothetical person could do it, but I'm sorry, nobody can. And even if they could, if your memory's that good, like, I don't understand why you wouldn't focus on other things, right? Like, yeah. So there's just clearly just like a huge trade-off there. And that's actually something I'm probably going to write about soon, just like the distinction between soft lowlights and hard lowlights, and do you use them for memory or not? And if you mix them, aren't you still just remembering and it dilutes the value, blah, blah, blah. But we're seeing clearly, and this is probably something I'll have to make a note of for the article, we're seeing right now like the ripple effect and the downside of handing out lowlights for something other than being out of conversation during banana bread, which is that you can bring a hard lowlight back up and then shoot them.
Right. All right, and so the last couple of things I want to talk about, or from this one, I think, unless there's anything else you want to say, is given the fact that we had a bug really early on, our pacing was a bit off in this game. The fact that we had, like, it's funny, because the green time ad won us the game, basically. Like, the green time ad happened to work out where it created this odd frame suspect in Disney, because the beeping started right when they were at Windows, and that's just one of those things. And so what I'm saying is, I don't think they should have been in a position where they needed to do the green time ad. It did work out really well, randomly, but still, we had that bug, we had that low light. And even if we knew we were low lit, which it's kind of hard to tell because when we got
I don't
low
think
light,
they knew.
Yeah,
No.
exactly. It was just kind of hovering over the door. Like there was 3 people near the laser. It's kind of hard to tell. But we did not hit the great pacing on this map. And first of all, it's gallery. That happens a lot. Gallery is suspiciously, or sorry, deceptively
Threateningly?
large. Threateningly large. Gallery is strangely and deceptively large, and you have to actually spend a lot of time moving around on it. And even though we got an early bug, and we did go to mission sites for a while, we spent a little bit too long idling. And one thing I do definitely respect though is we did the time ad before we absolutely needed it, which, as it turns out, was absolutely something that Cupcake would have caught. Because as soon as the beeping had started, they immediately reacted, or sorry, the slow beeping, that is. They immediately reacted to the time ad. So had we been at Windows with, like, let's say, even with Walt, it would have narrowed the party down to 2, and all sorts of other bad things would happen. Recognizing the need that you're going to have to time ad early, and you know in yourself that I am not going to finish, I need to time ad before the beeping starts. Big sign. Great.
And particularly important on gallery because, like the inside-outside distinction I made about purloin lowlights, the time ad stuff is ridiculously obvious.
Oh, yeah.
Like, so when you notice a time ad, if your confidence happened even in the last 5 seconds, like it basically can't be anyone who's not outside or like 30 pixels inside. You know what I mean?
Right.
Anyone on the back half of the inside, it could not have happened. Honestly, we kind of need a window pad back there or something because right now it's not like Veranda or Library where you're like, okay, I've narrowed it down, but there's so many places they could have come from the window just now. So, you know, with Gallery, it is so much harder to get away with, which is brutal because, as you said, like it's deceptively big too. It's threateningly big. So between those two things, that's what I think trips people up on Gallery is it's hard to pace and it's so freaking hard to get away with a time ad. It's just so easy to get those lowlights. I'm almost out of things to say here, but the last thing I want to say is that it did take the purloin too. It wasn't just the time ad. The list had to be gone to make them feel like somebody could have finished because that was the only visible tell of anything happening. So I think the timing here is actually really good. As you could see, you know, LG is pretty close to finishing here. So Cupcake did have to shoot. The question is in that kind of gut check moment, like, do you think it's one of your suspects? Can you differentiate between the hard and the soft lowlights? And if you don't, you know, game over.
Yeah, interesting. And actually, that happens to go with the thing we were talking about before, where time ads are a great example of something suspicious and not threatening. And so, it took threat.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's it. It took threat. Like that is the exact thing you were saying. I'm just
the time
putting
ad
it
was
into terms.
suspicious. Mm-hmm. Right, the purloin was threat. Without the threat, I think they probably hold that shot, especially because people usually time ad because they're not going to finish. That's the whole point. So people sometimes get jumpy when they see a time ad, and it's like, no. The time ad means they have at least one more thing to do.
All right. Well, I think that's it for this game then.
Yeah.
The last thing I will note is you are correct that LG was pretty close to finishing, but they just harp on the basics. They're close to finishing in 3 different ways, and I would like to the fact we don't get lucky.
You're saying you have to criticize a little bit there, right? Because there's too much partial progress across these missions.
Yes, exactly. And now it's funny because we'll sometimes we'll be almost. We'll be of 2 minds on criticizing this because sometimes we'll be like, oh, they left themselves with so many options, you know, and we'll love that. But also leaving partial progress on a bunch of them. It hurts me a little bit on Gallery. I guess basically either you do it to 2 or you focus in on 3. Like the fact that it has Inspect and Seduce and Fingerprint. And I don't think we needed to really have Purloined is basically the thing. Now, of course, both my critiques of we were behind on pacing, so we time added, and we were behind on behind on mission completion, so we purloined, is what caused them to win the game.
Right.
So it's like, what do I know kind of a thing, but yeah, still.
Well, no, but like the distinction between process and results is a really important one. And it's something that you need to make if you want to get better, because you will play well and lose, and you will play bad and win. This wasn't playing bad exactly, but when you think about it, if you remove that low light, is this even a good game?
Right.
I don't know. It's an okay game. Maybe the bug is really good, but the low light is the game. It's the only reason anything works. So I think it's kind of interesting that you can play, 90% of just an average game maybe. But if that 10% happens up front and it gets you a low light or something, you just win. So, and a lot of unintended consequences happen after that. And that kind of makes sense because if the spy is low lit and the sniper's trying to make sense of it, it's not, there's going to be like dissonance in their mind. It's like, this doesn't add up. This doesn't make sense. Something is wrong, right? And that alone will cause them to win. So I don't want to devalue it too much, because they're going to take like weird, like I mentioned, weird shots. That's a hard low light getting shot. Why? Because the sniper is trying to hold two contradictory realities in their heads at once, and they have to make a decision. And that honestly is like, that's some high level stuff when you get good at like parsing that out. When you can get to those moments where you're like, you know what? This doesn't make sense. I screwed up somewhere. The spy is low lit.
And you have named that previously. I don't know if you've written an article on it. I think you have, though, on that sort of humility of snipers.
Yeah.
Where you want
the
to be
Dunning-Kruger thing. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Where you want to be a humble enough sniper to recognize when you could have been wrong, but you also need to be a bold enough sniper to say, no, I think I've been guarding this pretty well. I trust, right?
Right.
And it's a balancing act, because if you are too, let's say, too humble, you will take shots you shouldn't, because you are just like, I'm lost, right? When actually you're not.
Someone
lost.
got a bug by me, right? And they did.
Right.
So
yeah.
So well, I know I keep saying this is the last thing I'm going to say, but this is the last thing I'm going to say. But that gives me is a really good point tied to that. So humility is important. Knowing how much you should trust yourself is important. But this is different, right? Like, it's not just a skill thing, like how good am I at catching bugs? If I'm really bad at catching bugs and it really seems like someone's finishing with, like, say, late inspects, and it really fits the kind of narrative of a spy game, so I probably missed a bug and they're finishing, or no, I guarded bugs super well, so they're not done, hold the shot. Those both make sense. In this case, that wasn't the humility. The humility had to be about lowlights and highlights. It was a decision. It wasn't a skill thing. It was so it wasn't really about humility as much. It was more about knowing going into the game that you are mixing hard and soft lowlights and playing differently from the ground up as a result. Because you could totally do that. You just have to play differently in the end game sometimes, right? Than you would if your lowlights are dead to you, like yours are, or like mine usually are too.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
yes.
One game, 35 minutes, we're doing fine.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is what it's for. And I'm also going to bring up one more thing.
It's the slow cat. Put on some Barry White. It's slow.
It is slow. I'm just going to notice that when we're talking about time ads before, the funny thing is nobody goes to Windows in between, even though it takes like a good 30 seconds. There's basically, and actually, just overall, only one person checks their watch at Windows, I think, all game, besides the spy. I could be wrong about that. I was just kind of scrolling through it idly before. Oh, wait, no. One of the twins does it at the corner one. But besides that, it's just Irish, the spy, and actually White doesn't actually check their watch, the thing, but like, they're zoomed in. They can't actually tell.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point too. A lot of people spend a lot of time zoomed in on gallery. That's the only saving grace, is that sometimes they just won't see anyone at Windows because they're not looking. But if you're the kind of sniper who like cares at all, and clearly Cupcake is, given how they reacted to that, then it's totally different. Yeah.
Right. So it's actually it's funny because it's not a bad highlight, except for the fact that they mixed their lowlights, and so they should have known that it wasn't this person there.
Right.
But it was not like someone had left recently. When the beeps had started, there was a good 30 seconds, and then this is the only person that had been at Windows. It was the only person who possibly could have time added, or done a time ad within the last 30 seconds. It just happens to be that this was at the tail end of a green time ad and the beep started.
Yep. So it's taking soft lowlights, but then kind of treating them like hard lowlights, I think is kind of what's going on,
That's right.
Anyway.
Okay.
On to Obsidian. Ascend Beyond as the spy and Silverthorn as the sniper on Courtyard.
Sounds good. Between each game, I'm going to turn caster mode back on, and then basically once we think we have a thread on it, I'll just turn it off. Because I just, that way when I click into the games, I won't see the outcome. But not that it really matters in this one. But
I will know more than you then in general.
Okay. Is that not already true?
I was wondering if you were going to,
All right,
take the bait to insult yourself with it.
What are we having? Is it Iron that's next?
Obsidian.
Obsidian, that's right. See, that's the only thing about Obsidian is I can't. It doesn't fit in my hierarchy.
Yeah, no. There was a lot of talk about this. You'd actually be amazed at how many criteria have to be satisfied to kind of make these divisions work and work with past divisions and keep woods next to woods and plants next to plants and rock next to rock and metal next to metal. It's it's a pain in the butt, no doubt about it. I just like to think of it as Cylon division though, because if you take like that red thing and kind of move it up to the middle, it looks like a robot.
Yeah. Oh, let me change the names also. So we are now looking at. So first of all, thank you to the SCL players for basically tacitly letting us always cast their games whenever they play competitive games.
We
and
did
upload
not
them.
ask permission, but
did
thank
not.
you for being so gracious and granting it retroactively.
Yes, exactly. So thank you, LG and Infamous Cupcake. Great. First of all, great play. Like the thing is, part of the idea of going up the ladder was supposed to be, like let's have some easy critiques.
They've totally sabotaged that. They're doing like this high level meta nonsense in Oak. Like, where do we even go from here? So I do want to say one more thing. As it turns out, even still, I'm going to pay you a compliment. I'm going to pay Cupcake a compliment. That was a high level mistake.
Then that's an interesting term, and I totally agree. You're right. Yeah. That's the kind of mistake that pros make.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. That is a very impressive mistake. That's an experienced mistake. Yeah.
All right. Well, I will now change it over to Ascend Beyond and Silverthorn. Who's the spy? The spy is Rocker.
Ascend Beyond. Yeah. Oh, Rocker. Yes.
And then who is okay? So Ascend is the spy. Perfect. Okay. So let me get that up on there. Make sure that overlays up. And yes, we are now in Obsidian. But yes, thank you to the players, and totally agree that they basically sabotaged our plan of slowly building up and like getting our lessons like to stack neatly on each other. But probably by the end of it, when we're in Diamond, it's going to be a bunch of goofy, stupid mistakes, and it's just going to be bad.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and start playing it. Ascend as Rocker, starting in 3, 2, 1, go.
And while we're watching the kind of boring little opening, I'll answer a couple questions in chat. How do we pick these games? Yeah, I picked someone near or at the top of each division, and I generally just looked for games that weren't super quick or like balcony or something, right? Something where it wouldn't be over quickly. There'd be a little bit to analyze. And I kind of gravitated towards effective spy games because those are usually more interesting to analyze. But there are some. They're not all spy wins. There's a good mix in here and a decent mix of venues too.
Excellent. All right, so right now we have opened with Flirt into Fingerprint, a little bit of an awkward path at the initial part, but it's not going to matter, I think.
And just standard statue highlights here. I know it's boring. I really sympathize with people who find it boring and like to go another way. And I think that's fine in a lot of places. I've kind of abandoned it in a few venues myself, or at least mixed it up a little bit. But there are a few places where it just makes a crazy, crazy amount of sense. And I'd say Courtyard is like Exhibit A.
Right. I mean, we've talked about this before, but one of the big ones is if a swap goes off, you know exactly the pool of players. It's like ridiculous response, right?
And one visit is inspects, and you're going to get like 3 to 4 AI maybe almost every game. So it just narrows down the pool of possible completioners, because who wants to do 2 hard tells, right? Or a hard tell and a fingerprint here. They do get a flirt early in the game, and that is like ridiculously common in every game. It's more noticeable in some than others. But if you don't like chase them to windows, or if you're not like 2 people jammed together alone in a conversation or something, I don't know how fruitful it is to watch for.
Okay, let's check out this bug. So I'm going to go ahead and pause it. I'm going to let it play out a little bit just to see what happens, but then I'm going to rewind. Actually, yeah. Okay, I'm going to take it down to 135, but then let's take a look at this bug. Before the bug, I was going to say one of the things that people don't usually mention on Courtyard that is really pertinent to me is the small conversation circles in the corners for seductions. Standing across the conversation circle from your seduction target, as we are on this map, it is not nearly as bad as it is on the large conversation circles. It's harder to pair, sort of. I mean, there's fewer people because it's a smaller conversation circle usually, but you are far closer. And even across the conversation circle, we got a nice, decent chunk of seduction, and it doesn't look all that suspicious.
I definitely measure seduction in chunks as well. I find that to be the most seductive way to describe romance in chunk form. So the only one that like is ever really obvious to people, because it's so ridiculous, is pub. Like, you're standing across from someone in pub, and it's almost like you're standing next to them on ballroom. It's absurd, right?
Yeah.
I don't think people realize that on Courtyard, the smaller ones, it's not that ridiculous, but it's closer. It's surprisingly close. So yeah, like if you are up against someone who might kind of flirt pair you a little bit there, I actually think it just doesn't even matter that much here. Yeah. But this bug, okay, so I want to say multiple things about this bug immediately. One from the spy side, one from the sniper side. On the spy side, they start the action as the amba's approaching, so it happens just very briefly once they settle in. So by the time they've settled in, it's already over. So good, like clearly just like looking, waiting for this. Like if you look at their camera, they can see it the whole way. They are ready for it. Cool, good timing. The other thing is it works because if you look at the sniper cam, they are zoomed in on the list right after the take. So let me see here. It's Alice, right? Equestrian takes Silverthorn, zooms in on the list, and that is like exactly when the bug happens. The hand is visible before, or sorry, just when they zoom back out. But, and this is super important. If you are like whipping your camera over or zooming in or out, even if something's visible, there's like this moment where your eyes have to like readjust. Like when you wake up in the middle of the night and they adjust to the dark, or you like turn and like look at a new area, like you sort of acclimate yourself real quick, right? It's like a fraction of a second. That absolutely happens here. If you zoom out and a bug is like immediately visible, if you weren't specifically zooming out to see it there, like your eyes going right there and you're like expecting it, it's just like a free extra second after the zoom to get away with stuff.
Exactly. I totally agree. And one thing that is particularly interesting is this works pretty well also because it's white dress. We are able to start to debug and like it happens right as Ambassador's settling in. I mean, so as you probably noticed, you can see the arm on the bug, right? You can see it poke through just a little bit, but like you're saying that the sort of like disorientation of getting like reoriented with the space and making sense of it is enough. And I know this isn't library, but this brings into a topic we've discussed on library, where sometimes there's too much camera movement on library from snipers. They're not actually getting a good picture of what they're looking at when they move around their laser too much. It happens on every map, but it's particularly noticeable in library because if you are going back and forth between basically the thirds of library, and you're going too quickly, you're not actually going to catch a lot of the little things. Maybe you'll catch bugs and purloins, sometimes not even bugs though, but you'll be looking too quickly and you won't be able to actually see everything, right?
Yes. Yeah. So there's like a super underrated way to deal with that sort of thing. You can't really do it on library very much, but even though it's a different venue I'm talking about and it's not possible in library, it'll still illustrate the principle that you're talking about. Sometimes on ballroom, you just need to zoom out and not move your freaking camera. And just like let the party stabilize, and then like movement and leans, it all becomes so much easier to see. You can see who's zipping around, which is something you'll kind of miss if you're zoomed in a lot. You don't get a sense of like who the active one in the party is, which let's face it is disproportionately the spy. So sometimes you just need to chill the hell out. And it's harder to do on library and courtyard because it's all about movement, rotation, and covering, and because half the map is like not visible at any point or whatever, or 2/3 in library's case. But in courtyard, you need to keep moving. So it's really about like maintaining that weird balance of like rotating, stopping for a couple seconds, then rotating again, then changing the rotation direction. I honestly think that like after a couple thousand games on Courtyard or old Courtyard 2 or whatever, that becomes totally second nature. I almost never think about my rotation on Courtyard or my zooms or anything. It all happens without me thinking. It's just down to pure muscle memory. I actually want to talk a little bit more about that bug. So I mentioned that they got away with it because they were zooming back out from the list and they were staring at the list. And there are two reasons to sort of be more focused on the, two reasons not to be focused. Well, let me start over. One reason to be focused on the list and one reason not to be right there. So the list is being offered to Alice, okay? And Toby offers it, let me see here. Toby offers it at 148. And the laser has been on this side of the venue for quite a while at this point, right? So even with latency, like you can tell the laser is looking at that side of the venue. Alice does not take a drink very quickly. It takes a few seconds, and she takes the drink at 143. So it's not like a spy trying to like quickly purloin, or a spy trying to purloin when you have recently been on the other side of the venue and maybe latency's off, right? If the spy is paying any attention at all, this would make no sense as a purloin. The laser has been there for a while. They wait several seconds. They don't try to rush it to like green and run away or anything. So it really doesn't make sense for Alice, even if she's the spy, to want to purloin there if she's paying any attention. So that's a reason not to be looking at the list quite so much relative to bug. The thing I'm going to say in Silverthorn's defense, though, is that the ambassador comes to the spy. That is something people will let through a lot. If someone is walking towards the ambassador, they will normally stop what they're doing and take a look, right? They will assume, hey, this could be a bug, and I'm going to guard against it. But if the ambassador comes to someone, they're basically thinking, well, what are the odds they're going to come right to the spy? Maybe that happens one every 2 games or something, right? Depends on the venue. So in this case, they're like, I'm just going to bet that the spy didn't get lucky here, and I'm going to watch the list instead. And I really don't know which of those arguments is better. But generally speaking, I would think you can catch the purloin afterwards if you missed it. You know, unless there's like a crazy long reject train, you don't necessarily need to see that fade. There's almost 2 minutes left on the clock. You're going to have the party narrowed down. So it's probably more important to guard the bug, all things considered.
Right, and yeah, even more so, all of the action is on the Turing's right foot side of the map, because we have the only statue
Yeah.
visitor. Toby's on that side, Ambassador's on that side. Really, basically everything is on that side. Even the person grabbing the briefcase is coming over to
It's
that
coming up.
side.
Yeah, there's nothing to look at. There's an SDA over there and nothing else. Like, there's why would Alice, if you were the spy, try to purloin there? It'd be a terrible move. So that's another thing too, right? Like you're probably not thinking of that in the moment, but on some deep level, you have to be like assessing your opponent. Would they do this? Would they just do something random and aggressive for no reason, even though it makes no sense? Or are they good enough that they wouldn't? And that has to inform your play too. If you think your opponent's, pretty good and wouldn't make a huge mistake like that, then you don't need to be watching the list as closely right there. But again, I do want to defend them because the ambassador came to the spy, and that's kind of lucky.
Yes. Oh yeah, and also to be totally clear, like this is not critiquing the thought process of the sniper. Pretty much, like we have the benefit of slowing down and stopping. The number one way in which I've improved as a sniper is making these things intuitive, making them train. I don't think about it. Like when you said earlier, when you play enough of Courtyard, you don't think about your rotations. It just becomes second nature. That is the kind of play that you inform your physical actions on the map with experience. It's not that you are doing them randomly, not spinning around the map randomly. It's rather that you've kind of like through just the process of being punished for rotating like constantly, not stopping enough, blah blah blah, blah your the physical way that you move your laser on the map and what you pay attention to becomes more fluid and natural over time.
Yeah, and I mentioned earlier that like your eyes need to adjust unless you're like specifically looking for something after a zoom. So that's another thing too. If you had like a month to plan out how you would handle this moment, what you'd probably say is, okay, I'm going to zoom in on the list maybe still. Let's just say you still want to do that. But the second I zoom out, I'm going to look right next to that ambassador because that's the only other threat nearby. So, if you had all the time to kind of plan out what you were doing in the moment, that your eyes would be right there and you would see the hand anyway. If you've ever seen like a really good sniper, like on Ballroom or whatever, sometimes the list, the tray will go up, right? And they're looking for a purloin and you'll see them like flash zoom in real quick and then zoom right back out. And they like, as a caster, you can barely see the list yourself. Maybe you can't see it. And you're like, how did they see it? They saw it because they were expecting to do it. They specifically zoomed in to see that thing. So when they zoom in expecting to see like a smudge of white on that tray, they only need to see a few pixels and then they zoom right back out because it's what they're expecting to see. It's their eyes know exactly where they're going to go. If you don't have that, if you aren't like deciding where you're going to look before you look there, then you miss it.
Right. All right. Well, I'm letting the game play out a little bit.
Yeah.
From this position, we have. I guess we can just talk about normal kind of spy strategy.
Banana
You've
bread.
done the bug. Interestingly, we have a fingerprint done, so we could do a statueless game, which would be my hope. That would be fantastic. Because out of every, maybe this could be like the next little topic is out of all of the maps in the game, with the possible exception of Balkan, I don't even think so. I think that Courtyard takes the cake for this one. It has the most priming for the sniper of any map. You are super like, first of all, double agent almost happens every single game. It's like, and then like snipers are very primed for a contact to come off, because even there are, and so it's like silent games are this like super specific esoteric strat where it's like if you can get away with it, it's like this weird risk because double agent is so good on this map. It's possibly the most spy favored mission in the game, except for maybe you can make an argument for contact on balcony, because like you can actually truly get everyone in there. But it's an extremely spy favored mission on this map. So
let me give you some data. What percentage of games of Courtyard, let's say last season, because that's the new Courtyard. Last season, what percentage of Courtyard games had contact completed?
Just guessing.
Yeah, just guessing. It's okay. These are harder than I'm letting on.
Wins are total games.
Just games where it was completed. Like, does it happen? Not a fake, right? Not just here one either, so it has to be completed.
78.
73. 72.7, actually. Nice job. Good guess.
Interesting. So,
yeah, very good.
But that includes losses, correct?
Yes, and it does, but it doesn't include fakes. So you're talking about sniper priming, though, right? You expect to hear that. You expect to not get a silent game at the very least. So, and 73% of the time, you're right. But that's a really important distinction. I'm glad you brought it up. Like, which is more powerful? It's probably going to vary from venue to venue, your answer, but we'll start with Courtyard. Which is more powerful, statueless or silent? And I think statueless on Courtyard, because you can get a good BB almost every time if you're patient.
Right, exactly. And also, like, you can muddy the water with fakes, which is the other thing is I'm just going to say the 5% I was off was including the fakes.
I mean, I don't have that data, but that actually sounds
Right.
close to right. I'll say a little higher, but okay, yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
But they make a really good decision. So you said earlier, like, okay, so how do we play this now that we have the bug? That is absolutely the question. Like, do you think you were seen, and how will that inform the rest of your decisions? It actually makes a lot of sense to say I really want to avoid either contact or inspect. Because I don't want to make this shot easy for them if they thought they saw it, but they're not sure, for example. And if I got away with it, which one is least likely to get me shot by a Hail Mary shot? You know, the humble, I know I'm behind shot, I miss something shot, which, you know, is obviously the case here. And I think they make the right decision. They go contact and they go fingerprint. And that's where that early fingerprint actually enhances the value of the bug. Because if they get the bug done at that point, but they don't have a fingerprint, I don't know if they can finish without statues or without rushing the fingerprint. So that is really what gave them the option.
No, this is a again. I'm very happy with the play that we've seen so far, and really, I'll be upfront. I thought it was gonna be not as good as this, and this makes me afraid for my future in the game.
This is actually bad because we really wanted to like contrast these divisions more, and we're just seeing good SpyParty play is all that's happening. I'm sure there are going to be some contrasts, and actually, I didn't realize this until we were already about to start. But I think what I'd like to do in one of these future casts, assuming everyone likes it enough, is specifically take one venue across the divisions and see how people play that specific venue. So that's something to look out for next time, maybe.
Oh, hey, I love that idea because also it would just literally improve my play a lot. I hope we do one on. I hope we do one on Tan. I have already gotten burned for like I just don't know how to play this map. I'm gonna get burned again for an Aquarium.
I actually avoided a lot of Tan in this set because sometimes it's just going to be, well, they went to center statues and the bug was invisible, so what are you going to do? But we are going to get into more advanced Tan stuff, I think, especially after this season's over when we have a little more data. But to sum up this game real quick, so we go to the first game, and specifically it's like an okay spy game that's won because of the low light, right?
Mm-hmm.
In this one, the spy actually plays a great game, and the sniper really only misses one thing.
Yeah.
They have that little decision, that little split-second decision about whether or not to focus on Purloin or Bug. They don't quite adjust quite right. That happens to be the exact moment the spy takes advantage, and then they just play a clean game after. Like, this is literally one tiny mistake from Silverthorn, and it costs them the game because Ascend Beyond does not make any mistakes, basically.
Right. And
you have to live with that, right? Like, you lose to a perfect game because you played 95% of a perfect game. I'm exaggerating with perfect, but you get the idea, right?
Right. Yeah, because like sometimes you'll see this where there's no shot. Banana Bread went off. There wasn't even close to looking like there was a shot anywhere else. Silverthorn felt like they had a pretty good guard on Bug, and like you're saying, they were confident that no one was done apparently, and they were correct that nobody else would have been done. It was just the one Bug that they missed, and well played out from there. I don't think I don't have anything else really for this one, but just
only 20 minutes on that one. Okay, all right. I guess we can skimp a little.
I would say that if I was replay sniping this game, I might have lost it. Right? Yeah. I don't know.
It will totally come down to whether or not you're camping Bug effectively enough.
Right.
Because if you are not, and if you happen to miss even just that one moment, yes, you would probably lose it too.
Right. All right. Well, very nice, clean spy win, and good play from both sides. And then we are going to moving on to what's up next? Is Iron now? Is it
it's Iron, and it's Magic Doer as the spy against Renmilia as the sniper. And Magic Doer is not in first tier. I picked someone just a little lower in this case, but they're still very close to the top there. Magic Doer 3-0-1 in Iron. So, and Iron's got some pretty good players. Jeez, God, it's ridiculous. So, like, there are maybe still just a handful of elite players. I don't know if that number has gone up a crazy amount over the last couple of years, but the number of good or to pretty good players has basically tripled in like a year and a half.
Yes. And what's great about that is that there's the I've been trying to use this word a lot recently, but I keep forgetting the critical mass of players needed to have enough players that are on at all times, so that that group of players can always have another really solid player to play against, and they're not having to either wait or schedule or just like hop on. And then because there was always people that you could play on, but if you specifically wanted to find a certain,
like a competitive game,
yes, exactly, right. Competitive game is a great way to put it, where before basically you had to play an SCL to get competitive games, or you had to schedule with people, which was fine. But now you can just do it on a whim. Like, you can fit in like 10 competitive games of SpyParty, specifically competitive meaning close and high level. And then, because I would never know why anyone would just willingly sign themselves up for actual competitive SpyParty, because it's just a bad idea. SpyParty shouldn't be a competitive game. I'm just kidding.
No,
but
it's
hurts.
It's pretty rough. It's bad. It's really bad.
Okay.
So
So yeah. It's Magic Doer as Frizzy or Hair or Oprah. So many names for so many of these. I liked when you went with Equestrian for Alice, which is gonna mess with my
I
minds.
never call her Equestrian. I always call her Alice in my head. I almost always do it on cast, but I have laid out ground rules, whatever, for what these names should be. And my argument is that you should be able to tell who I'm talking about if you've never seen this before and never heard of any of these nicknames. And I think that's a really good rule. For Hair, you can mostly get it. Red Dress is the safest. Alice is not good. It's just not a good choice by those standards. It's the one place where I have just total cognitive dissonance, though. I acknowledge it's not a good name, but I can't stop using it because every other name is kind of crappy. But Hair's pretty good.
Hair is pretty good. And also, we are honoring the work of Simino for all of the effort put into all of the polygons present in Hair.
Was it 30,000? I think they said in her hair. It's like more than some entire characters, or as many as some. It's something absurd like that.
I wonder if there's more polygons in Hair than in Alice, because that might cause some strife, you know?
Yeah,
Anyway.
maybe.
Okay, so I guess we'll just go ahead and get started and see how this goes. Starting in 3, 2, 1, go.
Yeah. So for people who don't know, the reason that's a joke is because Equestrian / Alice is based on the artist's girlfriend.
Hence why we call her Alice. Oh, okay.
Yes.
We start with an immediate white time ad. Does not appear to cost.
And a bail because now if that's a green, they maybe hang out there a little bit, right? But if it's a white, you're like, well, crap, I gotta get out of here. And it's library, so you really might get away with it. Because like Contra Gallery, library was specifically the example I used Contra Gallery earlier, right? Which is on library, you can basically be confident that like 4 or 5 people on the screen when the time ad goes up did not do it, but you could whip over and not be confident that somebody did not just leave a window and like slip into a nearby conversation or statues or whatever. So you only get a few really confident lowlights off the time ad.
Right, you have to basically
Even
see
if you catch
statues or books or far side of conversations or something.
And that's if you 100% catch the time ad. If it happens off screen, you can only get a few lowlights with total confidence. The rest are like really risky.
And it's interesting because library is an interesting map because it's one of the maps I actually feel like doesn't need as much time. Like gallery, you really need time. Library does have another mission, but it actually feels like you can pace it out pretty well. It's one of the maps that is the most time addable, and also one of the ones that needs time ads the least, in my opinion. Like contrary to like Modern. Modern catching time ads is far easier.
Yes.
But you need it more.
Right, exactly right. Now, again, there have been some time ad bumps to all these venues recently for competitive, which changes it a little bit. But I agree, library is actually kind of compact relative to how much is going on. It's more just about the movement, though. You can be a busy little bee on library and not get caught, right? It doesn't stand out. If you're the only one zipping around ballroom, like if they are zoomed out, like I talked about, you could sometimes just shoot whoever walked the most steps, and it's the spy pretty often. That's not necessarily going to be the case in library, and it's also just harder to know who that is.
So I'm going to go ahead and pause at the green purloin start, which was about 3:15.
Yep, I'm there.
Okay, so it's the classic spot to do purloin. It might be like the number one spot. Maybe it's just because I've been replay sniping versus Ponoob a lot, but it's the spot that if I think of purloin, I think of this pillar on this side of the conversation. Not even the pillar next to on the other side.
I was gonna say, can we clarify something? Because like when I think of classic, I think of that general spot, but behind the pillar, more like where
right.
More like where Sari and Walt are,
right?
Because they're barely visible. They're near that spot, but that spot was taken, so they're next to that spot, right?
They're in the iron spot.
This is Iron's version of the pillar purloin. They're an iron. They don't know to stand directly behind the pillar. They're so dumb they stand almost next to the pillar. No, of course they probably would stand there if they could, right? But it wasn't available, so let's just do it anyway.
Right, and so we get the green off, but it's also one of the great things about the pillar is not only do we get the green off, but it might be unclear about who was being offered at the time. If it was orange or Hair or maybe even Walt, it's probably the way the body's pointed. You can parse it out in the fact that obviously orange dress is about to purloin it. in fact.
Yeah, so that's what's crazy sometimes. Sometimes you'll see a reject, and this is like way worse on like library. It's easier on certain places. Like you can always figure it out on courtyard if you rotate enough, but you actually have to rotate like counterintuitively, and you have to break up that like muscle memory rotation thing I was talking about just to see who was like offered the drink. On library, imagine that Toby offers to that cluster of 3 people, right? And the pillar is also blocking 2 of them, and then Toby goes to another conversation. How confident are you that it was one rather than the other? Like, you
Right.
basically have to treat it like a 3-person reject chain unless Toby offers to the next person. And if he even starts to offer to the next person before they leave, you can go, okay, clearly it was someone to the left of that person, right? It narrows it down for you. But that's it.
Yeah, and it makes what happens ambiguous about what would be better. Because one thing is, it's kind of awesome to get green and for Toby to ditch out, because then Toby's going off him, but they'll get a clear look at the purloin. But now orange dress purloin's behind the pillar.
Yes, exactly right. And like, and she's in the more suspicious spot too.
Yes, and so we do see that there's a reaction immediately. So when Walt takes, it looks like it's Magic Doer? No, Renmilla does notice the list is gone before Ryan Disney. So many words, too many names. Oh, actually no, because
Right.
he gets
But
highlighted.
Well, that might just be an uncertainty thing. Like, I'm not positive, but you're right. They are like clearly waiting for that. They're like, is this a purloin? This feels like a purloin. They were actually really on it. And that's actually a testament to how good and powerful that purloin is, because again, there's a bunch of people there and you feel like it could be any of them. So even though Renmilia is like staring this down, they can't get a good look until it's a little bit later, and they don't get to narrow it down that much. And it's like through no fault of their own. It's just good spy timing.
Yes, and I actually want to see where the offer came from before. So it wasn't actually kind of a significant reject chain where there was. I don't think Teal would have been able to reject. So double agent takes, and I don't think technically Teal would have had enough time to reject. But then Toby comes from out of nowhere. But if we're not tracking the rejects, Toby has come from a different side of the map, and it's really hard to tell who would have been there before. So it's going to mess with our ability to backtrack that purloin quite a bit.
Yeah, and so what's funny too is that Magic Doer runs off after the green, goes hangs out by the ambassador, and while they're sort of reacting to the list, they wrong arm bug on the way out and go back to the same spot, which is kind of interesting. But by the time they get back there, Orange Sari is sitting there with a drink behind the pillar. And when the BB goes off, it knocks out Walt Disney, Andrew Ryan, whatever. So now it could just be Sari or Hare if they're on it completely. And in the meantime, Hare has gotten the bug off. And by the way, interrupts their own talk to do the BB. Very interesting.
Yes, and also what's interesting is I don't actually think of this as often, but the post purloin scramble to do the lowlights actually is pretty good cover for things like bugs. Where like also like an almost like smug moment where it's like the person's going around lowlighting everybody except for the swappers, right?
Yeah,
they actually
right.
might be so excited about the lowlights that you could probably get something off in there.
This is another thing I'm going to write about at some point because this is super interesting. People I don't think they consciously think this way, but on some deep level, they know it. Banana breads are offers. It is the spy offering a trade to the sniper. I'm going to put this in article form because I think it's a really interesting way to look at it. They're basically saying, I will trade you these lowlights for the mission plus maybe something I will do in its wake. So if you actually want to cover a purloin or a bug, a bad banana bread is better for your purposes because they're going to see those lowlights in that snapshot. They're not going to have like a perfect view of here are the 12 people who are out, right? If you do a bad BB on Modern or Library or something. But what they will see in that split second is, oh my god, a lot of people are out. So if I hurry up, I can get so many lowlights. So in that snap second or whatever, they have to like decide, do I want to take the lowlights or do I want to guard the hardtail sites that it could be covering for? Because everybody knows after like 100 games, they know that banana bread covers for hardtails. Everybody knows that. It's not a secret. It's not a trick anymore. It's not something where you're pulling the wool over the sniper's eyes. What you are doing now at this point is you're offering them a trade. You're saying, all these lowlights and maybe I'll do a hardtail. What do you think? And if it's enough lowlights, they're basically going to go ahead, try to bug afterwards, try to purloin. I'll take my 12 lowlights and narrow the party down. Or they don't buy it. They don't react because there aren't that many people out and they just stare at the list instead. But it's basically a bargain.
I totally agree with that. And I like the way that's put, where you can mess where people are intuitively risk averse. So a lot of the times they will incorrectly even take the lowlights. Where let's say you do a late banana, like let's say you've done flirt and inspect, and those are the two you have done. You're like on ballroom or something like that. And all you have to do is contact BB. If you BB badly while you're near Ambassador, and they are so excited to see all these possible lowlights, you might be able to get into the mission completion right from there. Even if they paused and they actually thought about the relative risk, where they can get those lowlights at any point, right? But they need to guard this person while they're near Ambassador. But it's just so good. It feels so good to get all those lowlights and to have all this certainty added to the game.
Right, and so there's like another wrinkle to that then, because the way you put it is good. Like if it's near the end of the game, it's different. If you hear that near the end of the game, you can't sell out on those lowlights because the lowlights are less valuable at the end of the game anyway. Because there's not going to be that much happening, and if it covers for the final mission, you lose. The fact that this happens earlier, or if it happens earlier at least, that makes the bargain even better. Giving someone a lot of lowlights early in the game that they can use to like really whittle things down and focus, that's irresistible. So sometimes, this has happened to me multiple times recently, I have seen a bad banana bread like in the first 30 seconds of ballroom, and I've thought, no way. I'm sorry, that is a misclick or they are up to something. Nobody would take this otherwise this early in the game. It's too good to be true, right? So either they made a mistake, like a technical execution mistake, or they are covering for something, or already trying to frame someone, or something ridiculous, but something is up. And actually, this was clarified for me, the whole bargain thing. In a game I played against Dowsy, we played a game on pub, and he was Alice / equestrian / people are saying ponytail, which I like, because there's pony in it, so it fits the equestrian theme.
Ooh.
So let's go with ponytail for now. He did a terrible BB in the front conversation of pub, and then just zipped inside and bugged real quick. And it's a super obvious bug, and I didn't see it at all because I was getting my 6 early lowlights on pub, and I was just like a kid in a candy store just trying to pick them all up. And the bug was just free. And I thought, I don't even know if I would play that differently, because that was a really good deal. He offered me such a good trade, and I took it.
Yeah, that's good. Where the you do have to maybe walk the line between. I like the phrase of too good to be true, where you actually underreact to it because it's wait a second, this is actually too good. It activates your trap senses. One thing I will just note at the end of this game is because we have finished. We are on the suspect with Renmilla because Renmilla is looking really closely at the swap, and then Magic Doer actually leaves very quickly to show
too quick.
Right?
Yes.
To show the statue is not changed.
That's my favorite thing. So you want to show them because you're not swapping at the end, and you don't want them to shoot just out of jitteriness or whatever, or because the swap could happen. So you kind of leave a little too early, which is simultaneously more and less suspicious.
Right.
Because there's no swap, so don't shoot me. But I left really quick, so isn't that kind of spy-like? But it really just shows that the bug is actually in some ways more significant than the purloin. The bug that happens in the wake of the purloin is what throws off the mission count, and it's why they think they need the swap to win, and if they don't swap, I can hold. They don't need the swap because they got the bug. So the inspect is the end of it.
Right.
So the bug that happens in the wake of the purloin is actually more significant than the purloin itself.
Yes, and that's a very interesting way to put it. Also, with the leaving early, you are you are trading suspicion for the reveal of non-threat, basically.
Which you'll take, because you only need to kill 5 more seconds. So
exactly.
Are they really going to go, you left kind of quick and there was no swap, and oh, the game's over?
Right, because actually leaving really quickly might think, oh, there's a green swap coming, because they're trying to get out of there, and they're being primed for a green swap to happen. But entirely correct that the bug going on in is the significant factor, where there are some games where you want to be the spy who is never seen doing anything and you win. You want to be the spy that gets someone else shot because you framed. But sometimes you want to end as the suspect that they were going back and forth on, but they wanted one more piece of information before they shot.
You have to be okay winning like that, especially as you advance, because more and more you're going to win as the top suspect.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to win clean very often. There are not many spies that do that at the highest levels. KCM's the only one who does it with any regularity anymore, I think. But I also want to point out that this kind of followed the same pattern as the earlier one. They were watching the purloin when the bug happened, and in both cases it won the game.
Oh yeah, that's interesting. Right.
Yeah, and it makes sense because purloin leaves a trace and bug doesn't. So purloin in a way covers for bug because the sniper has a reason to look at that kind of later, whereas bug is this transient, ephemeral thing. It's kind of like they say what people like a lot live theaters, that no two performances are the same. Like it just happens and then it's gone forever, unlike a movie or whatever, which is like frozen in time. That's bug. But you either see the bug as it's happening or it is gone forever. And if you miss it, you pretty much just lose if the spy's really good. And the spies have been really good here.
But then the shame of missing the bug is recorded and put on film and lives forever.
And then two huge jerks making jokes about Barry White or whatever, spending 30 minutes in every game will dissect your momentary failure.
Exactly. Okay.
Next one?
Yeah. Next one. There's not much more to say about that one, but these are fantastic games so far.
Yeah.
This is great. Like, cause I could easily see myself, and like sometimes we either act way not humble or way too humble. But this is one of the times where like I've been playing SpyParty for a long time. I have a pretty good intuitive thing, but I could see myself grabbing lowlights on the right hand side of the map for the purloin,
Yes,
and then giving
and
up
missing
on the
the bug,
bug. Yep, classic move, and then being stuck on the mission count being off.
Okay, so you and I have a very big challenge. We have to probably keep these other games down to like 10 or 15 minutes.
All right.
You think we can do it?
Well, some of the games is one, we're getting some of the things we've kind of probably had in our mind out of the way, right?
Yeah.
We're like been thinking about things and kind of just like talking about them. So
Yeah, I'm not going to spend 35 minutes on lowlights the next time we do one of these, I hope.
Right. So we are on to Copper.
Yep, Copper. It's Max Edward Snacks, who is sitting at the top of Copper, 3-0-1. I mean, what else can I say? I'm just going to keep saying it every time. Oh my God, they're all so good right here. I mean, you're looking at I played Calvin Schoolage, and he's pretty good, and he's 1-0-2, right? And he's like in the middle of the pack. So scary, scary stuff. And I think this is the only Tan game, so enjoy it while it lasts.
All right, let me get the names up. And then I don't know if we have flags on them, but it doesn't really matter that much. Although actually
Snacks is the U.S. and so is Kmars. They're both U.S.
Okay. And then Spy is small. Ooh. Okay.
Yeah. By the way, I don't think we're stepping on any of the. Actually, I should probably check what tomorrow's schedule is. Yeah, I don't think we're stepping on any of the games tomorrow that are going to be cast. But if they are, we will step on one at worst. So
Right.
it won't be too bad.
Yeah, I don't think we would be. And then also we won't be mentioning the scores of what the overall game is. So you'd only have one piece. Hopefully it's not the deciding game.
All these matches are 1-0 as far as you're concerned.
One thing I will say about this this tool, this amazing tool that Kletos or someone else developed, Smallman isn't called Smallman. He's called Penguin. And I always miss him. Penguin is old art, Buckswaggle, you not Smallman.
No.
It's hard to remember. It's small.
I agree. Don Vito, I always thought was pretty good because he looks like a mafia Don and like Danny DeVito. So that's pretty clever. But come on, it's Smallman now. Like, it doesn't matter if that's the best or not. You can argue about it, but it's academic. Smallman wins in all senses of the word.
Okay, so I guess let's just hop into it. So one thing we should mention right before we start is that there's the classic. Basically, we don't know how cheesy this is going to be because we have no idea. There's been even theory crafting because there actually has been more theory crafting than actual play. Because I'll totally admit sometimes I feel weird about picking Smallman on Tan or on other maps where even as far as a suspicion thing, but it's sometimes you can get away with a win on Taein theoretically where they could have never ever shot you. But
we talk about that sometimes. My opinion is that it is always possible or almost always possible to shoot, but it can be so hard that the question is still sort of fair because it's really a balance question, right? Does this need to be changed? I actually think that if people were super cheesy and practice at it a ton, they would sort of break it a little bit. And that hasn't really happened, thank goodness. And things still have to line up a little bit. But I do think we're going to have a game where it basically feels like the sniper can't win.
Yeah, and I think it's going to take one high profile, really high profile SCL game. For example, if we have a set between let's say you and Magician, top of Diamond Finals, it's happening, and you start doing ridiculous Smallman strats to win out the last game. And then the community of hate comes down on you for being. Yeah,
he spends 15 seconds trying to shoot me at the end through the whole countdown and then some, and just can't even line up a shot at the back of Taein. It's how bad would that feel, right? Would that be satisfying for anybody? Would that feel like a competitive esports game? Yeah. I don't think it's going to be a big thing yet, but I think theoretically it's possible to make it feel really cheesy. Yeah, but let's see if it happens here.
Okay, let's go ahead and get started in 3, 2, 1, go. And I kind of doubt it because one of the things that's stopping is no one wants to be that person. I would rather lose a game of SpyParty than Well, I say that, and yet I'm pretty known for dancing, but I have reservations about that. But anyway, here we go. We miss out on the flirt at front window, but also we probably won't get dinged for the pairing too much, and we
No,
take
you won't.
the briefcase.
So if the plan was I'm gonna go for the briefcase and bide my time and maybe I'll get a flirt if I'm lucky, fine. If the idea was to get the flirt, it's just a straight up mistake because like there's a very high probability they're gonna leave at that point. You just did not get there anywhere near quick enough, and that's okay. Sometimes you can. But I'm actually surprised at how often even very good players will sort of just rush to windows or something to flirt when the ST has been there long enough that the odds of them staying are just pretty low. But if it's just like, hey, maybe it's a bonus and I'll fall back on the print, then it's totally fine.
So one of the interesting things about Teian that people don't really talk about is that also highlights. You can't tell who's highlight behind the screen. So right now the highlight doesn't matter at all until you come back into view. It doesn't make you more obvious.
Yeah.
Also, Ambassador left a print on center statue, the front center statue, which could come back into play later if we want. Because like we could get basically banana bread into go to center statue. Fingerprint, inspect all three, green swap, hide sort of situation, right?
But then you need to hit a bunch of action tests because you're going to 3-cycle, and you're Smallman behind a Shoji on Teian, so you're probably, or not behind a Shoji in this case, I mean, like, you're not going to get away with that 3-cycle there. It's not like the back of ballroom if things are busy out front or something like that. You're probably going to get burned in this case.
We are not seen by the sniper. Like, right now, the sniper is really focused in on Purloin. We probably could have gotten that book. Interesting that there was a fingerprint on this book. I did not even see that. Apparently how is there a fingerprint on this book?
Yeah, I mean, the ambassador just loves the blue books. And by the way, those are the absolute best. When they go to get a book and then they put it back and then they go again, because then when you're seeing at the blue shelf, they're like, no, they still got their blue book. They're putting it back right now. So unless they specifically remember that it's a new blue book, it's just a free fingerprint. Oh my God, that didn't. And he hides in the back. Oh my God. So clearly the idea was to get the hell out of there, and he just left too early.
Oh my goodness. So yeah, this is a great game to slowcast. I'm
because we need to break this down because everything happens so quick. Like it's not enough to just watch.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So it's funny because like we were just talking about how the other games have been like really clean, not silly games up to this. This is the SpyParty I know and love. So all right, so let's break down what happens at the end here. So we get the great. Sorry.
I was just sorry. You go ahead.
I do want to talk about for just a second how amazing the fingerprint feels, like you were talking about before, where nobody had gone to book where after Ambassador left it, and then they go back to the shelf, and so you see Ambassador with a book in their hands, and someone goes and gets it. That's just intuitively like that's like sometimes a low light for that because it's obviously not a fingerprint, right? Except for the fact they had been there earlier and went back to the same shelf. So being seen at a shelf next to Ambassador, except for the bug threat, is fantastic.
Right. And it's funny because it turns on the smallest of things. So let's say the ambassador obviously grabs a blue book early in the game, right? Now there's a fingerprint on that book. A lot of people go to books on Teian, so you don't know how long it's going to stay there. Obviously, if it stays there for like 45 seconds and then you pick it up, that's great. In that case, when the ambassador goes back to shelves, it's bad because it refreshes the print in the sniper's mind. If they've forgotten about it, they're going to remember again now. That's terrible. But once they take the book out, it's the other way around. Suddenly, it's great again, even better now. Because now it's like, they stole the book with them. So on one hand, you're like, crap, they went back to shelves. And it's like, well, they took the book with them. So this is actually almost free now if they're not paying a lot of attention to fingerprint.
Right. So that was just like a cool small thing. And now let's go ahead and go on to the bug. So we've completed contact and fingerprint. And we have a pretty visible bug even behind the Soji.
Yeah, it's not a great bug.
Which is it's just a bit unfortunate. I mean, the thing is, I guess maybe we're possibly focused in on Purloin at the time, but the thing is, like, also just the shape of Smallman in profile with his arm out has become burned in my mind. Like I think I catch Smallman bugs more than any other type of bug, as long as it's not totally blocked, because I know I know Smallman's outline when he's bugging. I know it really, really, really well.
So that is what you would call a wrong arm bug, but that is a literal wrong arm bug. That is not the arm you want to bug with. You want to bug so it kind of goes into the ambassador or through them so that their shadow is blocking it. And then it's a super suspicious path and maybe they bug, maybe they didn't. You do not want a wrong arm bug there. It is wrong. What I find super interesting is that exactly when the bug happens, the sniper's camera twitches down and to the left. Just like real quick. Like they are like readjusting kind of like what they're looking at. Maybe they're reacting to the list moving around. I don't know what it is, but they move their camera like right as the bug happens, which shows that their eyes are moving.
Right, and I think they might even be trying to highlight Smallman, but they're already highlight, but you can't tell because it's behind Soji. And so then we're in the situation where we pick up statue, right? And we must have wanted a green. And then we have all the things that happen there. Now, first of all, the statue's changing is pretty obvious, right? We're right next to it. And then we have the clank. I'm trying to figure out if we are actually bailing to if we knew we were gonna clank and we were trying to bail to the back.
I don't think so. I mean, I just don't see why you would. You clank when it's like the end of the game and they have no time to react, I think. Yeah, I don't know. I think the plan was to green when they did. They just sort of panicked.
Right.
But it didn't even matter. Like, they try to line... I mean, like, the sniper is staring at it, and they see the swap, and they're waiting for it, and all this other stuff, and they can't even... Yeah, they can't even do it.
So
it's just so hard.
I agree that we wanted the green, and then we did panic, because the other thing is we started... If we were going to clank, we didn't even need to put it down, right? We could have just run away. You don't need to go
right,
through part of the animation.
Exactly. They start to put it down, right? So, like, why would you clank if you were starting to do that?
Right. And then we are trying to get to the conversation where we can't be seen. And the thing is, it's funny because we missed the shot, but we had to hit the shot in that window of time. If we did not hit the shot while he was going between Carlos, General, and that conversation, let me go. Actually, I can even check this. I'm gonna go to interactive sniper cam and look where he ends up. I don't know if you can get that shot in 6 seconds. It's really, really hard. I don't even know if you can get an angle, really. Like, you'd have to shoot between the armpit of Papa and Seek and that kind of stuff. So it was correct to take the shot quickly in that timing because you weren't going to have another good chance at it.
Yeah, so this is actually where you need to be kind of ahead of the curve. So, like, he walks away, right? Because of the way aiming works in SpyParty, you can lock onto someone and just hold your camera there, and they'll walk off screen and you can still shoot them because they're the last person you locked onto. So what you really need to be doing here as a sniper, if you're KMARS, you just need to be zoomed in so that when he walks away, your cursor is between that conversation and the statues. So he's going to walk over your cursor, you hold the safety off then, and it doesn't matter where he goes after that. So you actually need to be ready beforehand, I think, to take that shot.
Yes, and that's a great piece of advice, first of all, because there's the spot that you know that they're going to go into. They're not going to stay near the statue because they only have one piece of cover. And it is, unfortunately, a great piece of advice to stop dancers, because that's what, back in the day when I was able to do more dancing before we were actually good at catching dancings, is...
just, like, don't overreact to it.
Yes, exactly. Keep your laser in one position. Like, one of my favorite all-time memories was doing that versus KCM, and he was bouncing back and forth on the other side of someone's head, right? Where, like, because he wasn't just waiting for me, it's like chasing someone around a tree, right? You don't do it by just continuing chasing around the tree. You do it by changing direction, right? Or just like waiting for them to run into you, sort of a thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't really have anything else to say about that one. Just, that's a useful little mechanic. And I think next is Bronze, right? Turnip Boy and Mr. Rogers.
Yeah, and that was a fun game, at least to break up, where all the other games were just a little. They were too clean, too good, feeling a little bit better.
Yeah, we needed a little Smallman mess to clean up the cleanliness, just cleanse the palate. Really, just a nice sloppy Tayan game. Yeah, we're probably not going to get that here though. I actually don't know. I deliberately picked High Rise to kind of mix it up here, because it's like it explores a completely different side of the game.
Okay, so we have Turnip Boy versus Mr. Rogers.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Rogers is USA, I want to say.
Yep. Turnip Boy as well. Met both of them at PAX. Actually, Turnip Boy gave us a little ride in his car back from the convention center at one point.
Ooh, I don't remember. The thing is, like, there have been so many, like, the additional players that come out each year. Has been fantastic.
It's hard to keep track of.
I feel really bad because I loved meeting them all, but every once in a while I will hear that they're at the booth. I'm like, I don't remember which one, but I remember there's a bunch of new people.
The house too, yeah. He was a taller fellow.
Oh, I think I do remember this person now. Okay.
Yes.
And also, like, I mean, like the community is so not used to faces that Yeesh was able to sneak in and do the hidden game versus Bacon because people didn't know what he looked like, and that was wonderful.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. For those who don't know, Yeesh showed up at the booth, just said like, "Hey, can I try this game?" and decided to play Bacon on Tayen, and actually I think managed to win both games, and then said, "Oh, well, I'm Yeesh." And he went, "Oh, okay, fair enough, fair enough." There have been a couple little jokes like that here and there. My favorite of all time, I won't digress too much longer. No one knew what cameraman looked like. So he comes in, and I forget who it was he was asking. He was asking someone at the booth. He's like, "Explain the game to me," and he lets them go through their whole spiel. This is a cameraman. He's already got like 2,000 games or something at this point, and it's Hummus. Okay, so he's letting Hummus spend like 5 minutes talking about this game, trying to sell him on it. And cameraman goes, "Oh, that sounds really cool. Okay, well, I do have one question though." And he goes, "Oh yeah, no, I'll answer any question you want." He goes, "Why wouldn't I just shoot orange dress every time?" And the look on Hummus's face, apparently, it dawns on him that he's just been trolled. Like, I don't know who this is, but it's clearly somebody who's just wasted 5 minutes of my time and my precious voice, which is already scratchy at this point. And of course, it's cameraman. It's just perfect. It's the best troll we've had yet.
Right, because you're actually like because the exact thing that I was thinking about was the voice trolling at that point, because it actually matters, because you've been spending the last few days, and like it's real that your voice gets loud because or it gets raspy because the convention center is pretty loud. We're actually pretty lucky in the corner we're at. It's actually one of the quieter spots next to the Behemoth booth, but it is still super loud, and so you are talking and you have to be emphatic and whatnot. And so you also don't want to like leaning in and whispering in their ear basically how to play SpyParty. So you're talking pretty loudly and you're doing it pretty much nonstop.
Yeah, it's really rough. I took off every other day last time, and it still killed me. By the end, I think my second ever day and my first ever year, at some point I like went to say something and just nothing came out. I was like, okay, I guess I'm gonna have to rethink how I do this. Maybe I can learn sign language on the fly. I don't know.
And to bring this story back into the current set, so first of all, I don't think it was in bad taste, Ish. I loved you playing versus Bacon, and I think that he took to it fine.
I mean, I appreciate that he says that, because I know, we don't want to make anyone feel silly, right? Even briefly. Bacon, of course, very good sport about it, and it wasn't, he didn't draw it out at all either. But I appreciate him saying that all the same, because
Right.
we're not about like actually trying to embarrass anyone or trick anyone or anything. In this case, it was just meant to be a little good fun.
Right. But then one of the players in this game was also at PAX and challenged my co-caster here to an anonymous game of SpyParty in a horse mask, I believe.
Yes. So for people who don't know, here's a little bit of context. Is every year, at least over the last few years, and probably in perpetuity now, because now I've locked myself into it, I bring shirts for everybody. I make up some kind of SpyParty themed shirt, and I bring them for all the people there and give them away because it's fun. Someone showed up at the booth wearing a rubber horse mask and like a purple shirt and a black vest, like really over the top. And they just stand near the booth and just point at me. Like a guy in a horse mask is just pointing at me over and over, not saying anything. And eventually we're like asking him questions like, "What do you want? Oh, you want to play me?" And he just nods his horse head, and it flaps around and everything. So we wait a little while, wait for a little opening. We play 2 games on Ballroom. I win both of them. And then he like puts his horse head like falls, like in shame. And then he unbuttons the vest and the shirt, and underneath is one of the SpyParty shirts I made, revealing that he is not just a random person, but indeed Mr. Rogers. It was very, very funny. I took pictures and everything.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, I mean, so basically, first of all, I don't even know if I was in a horse mask if I could be a normal SpyParty player, because
it's harder.
Yeah. I kind of feel like all snipers should have to wear horse masks. That's kind of the visual occlusion thing that I'm kind of pushing for slightly.
He did say later that he thought I was in silver. He didn't. when someone said, "Hey, he just won platinum. He's going to diamond next season." He went, "What?" Like he meant to pick someone and just forgot what division I was in. I was like, "All right,
right." He just pointed at what looked like the weakest guy, and
okay. All right. Anyway, High Rise, Turnip Boy, Mr. Rogers. I don't think we want to deny people this game any longer.
That is true. All right, we are going to be jumping into High Rise any 3 of 5. One thing that I almost always forget to mention, because it's almost never a problem, is what missions were cut. It is the typical mission set. It's the most normal. Sometimes Purloin and other missions get interjected, where it's like sometimes not Fingerprint, for example. Yeah. I think that's the most popular one. Purloin Fingerprint is the most common. Switch up sometimes. Inspect. Very rarely Bug, but Contact, Flirt, Bug are real solid, and then the other mission kind of fluctuates a bit. almost never microfilm, which is really sad because I think it's interesting in this map, but it is so.
We'll talk about that in just a second, though. We're probably gonna have a lot of downtime on high rise anyway, so
That's true.
we can analyze this.
Starting in 3, 2, 1, go.
I think we have 2 people in chat right now who are arguing about that very thing in Discord recently. It was a very respectful argument, of course, but it was basically each saying, I think it's good to leave microfilm on. It takes up a lot of attention. It gives me some options. And Noob saying, nah, that's overthinking it. And it's an interesting question. But in that case, it wasn't Purloin. It was maybe I leave microfilm on. It is more viable on high rise. It's easy to forget that if you go to the far side of the green one, you get a lot of occlusion, and that plant in particular, especially because your right hand is the one. Apparently, everyone's right-handed, by the way, in the SpyParty world. Boo. Your right hand is the one facing away from the sniper, and you have the plant there at the blue bookshelf. So that one's pretty easy to get away with. So if you get away with green or time it well, or you just hide behind the thing and they don't adjust for it very well, you might just have it done.
The only thing that I really like microfilm in this map, and that's the thing is I love it. If I could make this map any 3 of 6 and guarantee that microfilm was in the pool and not one of the other ones, I would heavily vouch for it because I think it's so interesting as the topping on this map. It just takes so much time. If it didn't take so much time to do microfilm, I'd be more in favor of it on this map. But it's not only rare to be able to do. You have to do it boldly. You have to do it a lot, and obviously, and you have to commit to it. And I hate that part.
Yeah, so what I'm looking at right now, I'm kind of jumping around the replay a little bit. I'm looking at highlights, and what you see is there's a lot of early statue visitors, and Mr. Rogers is highlighting for them. And that's a big deal because this is 3-5. So someone, if you're going to credit Flirt, and most people are crediting Flirt like a minute and a half into the game, they're like not even trying to track it, and they just say Flirt is probably done because it's hard to track. So unless they get Flirt done crazy quick, again, like less than 90 seconds maybe, I'm going to assume everyone has it done. Maybe I'm going to try to note who could do a real banana bread, and then I'm going to note who could finish fingerprint or inspect. So whether or not a lot of AI go to statues and complete inspects theoretically is massive on 3.5 potentially.
Yeah, and also on maps like High Rise, the statue highlighting thing, it pollutes your ability to use highlights for other things. And it's one of the maps where even I'm normally a pretty reflexive statue highlighter. Don't do it as often, except for perhaps completions, because I want to be able to use my highlights for other things.
I don't think there's any real competitive disadvantage to me just saying that on High Rise 3.5, I highlight for real BB. Because that is actually a little hard to remember who could have a real BB, especially because there might be a fake and then a real. So the list will adjust on the fly, sometimes very surprisingly at the end of the game. But the statue inspects are almost always very easy to memorize as the game goes on.
That is true. That's actually a great point. Where one of the reasons why we have adjusted to using highlights for statues is that it's the biggest pool of threatening suspects. Yes. But on this map, it's actually not the biggest pool that you might need to remember. That might be, like you're saying, the contact, which I'm going to... Oh, it's a fake one, but it looks... It's a fake one? What happened with that one? I actually got to go back.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But you can see a Civ is going to get shot here.
And the red.
Y is potentially interesting.
Yes. Sorry, I didn't realize it was just because it's SDA, of course. And so it looks like a real BB is only in our conversation. So actually, I think I know. I was going to comment on this before. There's a briefcase race involving Bling Twin earlier in the game when we were at the beginning. So and I was going to say at 2:20 is when the briefcase race is. And I was wondering if he was going to get particular suspicion for it because briefcase races they just like immediately draw your attention, even though they happen with AI.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. You have to watch. There's 2 people acting weirdly, right? They're hunched over. You just never see that any other time. And when 2 people do it near each other, especially both highlights at the front of high rise, like you're right. If anything, I'd bug right then if you could.
Right.
Because your eyes are just going to be drawn there just by the weird movement that you're not used to seeing.
Right, and the fact that there's just like one person that completes it. So I think that's the reason there's a shot is was there a second fingerprint or
so there's let me see here. What was it at the end? I think let me see, because the spy gets a drink off the fingerprint right there, right around the same time as this is happening. I don't think so. I think they're just a little nervous. I mean, there was a path by the ambassador earlier on, so I don't know.
Yeah, it looks like because by the time the drink gets to seduction target, it's out of difficult fingerprints by 2, because Rocker takes, we take, and Papa takes, and so.
Right.
But then there's another fake right there that might have. No,
so there's a couple issues here, right? Because
Banana bread.
the twin, the person who gets shot, was at statues at the very beginning of the game, but they were at side statues out front, at the 3 statue set, but off to the side. So they're not done with inspects. They have a fingerprint, and it's a very noticeable one because it's a race. They also path by the AMBA. Okay, fair enough. So if you want to credit a bug, okay. The only thing that makes any sense to me, I guess, is thinking they missed a print on the drink or something. Maybe. Because here's the thing. The fake goes off at 55 seconds. The shot comes off at like 39. So the BB is done. If you think you missed something and that BB was the end of it, you shot too late anyway. So what's the mistake, right? The mistake is maybe thinking you missed something, but then it's also not shooting at the right time anyway. So I don't know which mistake actually takes priority, but I know one of those things is true. One of those things is a significant mistake.
So the aspect of the mistake that I'm going to focus in on is that's just going to happen if you have too many highlights in a Softail variant.
Yeah.
And so if you have too much general suspicion and there's just a ton of people going around doing stuff, and you can't even you can't basically correctly tunnel on people. You can't focus and look at and be sure about any one particular person or even a group of people. You're going to take shots like that because you're like, I feel behind. You just feel like you're underwater and you're just going to shoot someone and you're going to make like a poor decision like that where you're like, you're right. This one's not great because it doesn't make sense. It's not that it takes place within the 10 seconds of the BB, where that would make more sense because then it'd actually be a threat, or the fingerprint, which is probably just a mismemorization of, or just, I guess, misattention to how many people have taken drink before. But but I think that it stems from the fact that we didn't lowlight anybody. It looks like Smallman, actually. Smallman was low lit, interestingly enough.
There we go.
There's only one low light, and there were 3 highlights, and then, I mean, what are you going to do? On a Softail variant like this, people are going to do something suspicious. They're going to go to statues at the end of the game. They're going to be near Ambassador. They're going to be talking in a CC. They're going to be in Double Agent. They're going to be getting fingerprints. Mm-hmm. There'll be something suspicious that goes on, and if you can't hold your shot during that, then something has led you in your gameplay to take that kind of shot.
Yeah, I think that's well put. I think just the general having too many suspects really, because I can't figure out any more granular reason than that. It might just be it just really feels like the spy might finish, and I have too many suspects, and I don't feel confident about what they've done. So here we go. Someone BBs and then leaves. Good enough for me.
Yeah, and if it wasn't a double agent that they joined the paintings with, I like that shot a lot actually because it looks like a late flirt join at a paintings to try to win, right? But it was the double agent, so I just think that it's a game that got, and like, to be totally clear, this happens to me a lot on Softail variants where if I try to commit to suspicion gathering and I have too many suspects, then I'm basically kind of just committing to shooting the next suspicious thing that I see or threatening thing that I see, and then I'll just do badly because I'm thinking too much about other things and I see someone take a drink and blah 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 blah, right?
Yeah, confirmation bias is very strong because a lot of the things they do next could be, that's their last action. So
all right,
want to go on to Silver, Pofke and Dowsy?
Let's go on to Silver.
This set was cast, I actually think, a couple of weeks ago. Dowsy is currently at the top of Silver. Technically, if you look at the standings, you're going to see someone else maybe a little bit higher because they've played one more match. But I think Dowsy's waiting on a couple people. Of course, got their checker match in very late in the season. But no one's taken Dowsy down yet. It's a long season, but really strong start. And I think we're probably about to see why.
Alrighty. We are in Veranda. Pofke as Seek and Dowsy as Sniper, starting in 3, 2, 1, go.
Yeah, and Noob was pointing out in chat, like, it is a weird game for Twin because they did a lot of stuff. They just never quite did enough to finish any of those missions. Like, they were close to finishing a lot. They were actually acting very suspicious, very spy-like, in the sense that a spy might want to have a lot of progress across those missions, but I just don't think they ever crossed the 100% threshold for the threat.
Right.
The threat hold, if you will.
We fish for a bug on there, don't get it, but no harm, no foul, basically.
Yeah, not too bad. And I like this. This is the kind of stuff you're going to see more. We saw it weirdly in Oak, but we haven't really seen it so much since. This is, I'm going to go to an empty conversation. This is worth it. This is worth it, especially against someone like Dowsy who cares about that kind of thing, who is going to notice if a character is basically just wasting time.
Unfortunately, it looks like we were trying to do seduce, and our seduction target goes from green bookcase to statues immediately. And so, to Pofsky's credit, we know that we have basically wasted a bunch of time and we do a green time ad. Which again, big props to people willing to do the time ads when they identify the need early on.
Yeah, so the good spies, in my opinion, they make it so that almost everything they do has more than one purpose. It's not always possible, but sometimes it is. In this case, you know that your ST is going to be moving, so you don't want to chase them, like we mentioned earlier to windows. You chase them, and then by the time you get there, they leave. So what you do want to do is buy yourself a little bit of time to see where they go next and maybe flirt with them. So why not go to this empty conversation, maybe lose a little heat, look at really innocuous, look AI-like, and then maybe the ST affords you an opportunity to get a good chunk of seduction. But they don't, so at least you've idled with, you've idled very noticeably, at least, as a
My
fallback.
God, the seduction target. Green bookcase statues. Green bookcase statues. That's very interesting.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah. Oof.
I mean, it's bad enough already. I mean, with the time ad, it's a little better. But if I'm Pofsky at this point, I'm like already thinking, okay, how could I theoretically finish without seduce if this keeps up?
All right, so we're and the statue again. So now the question is, so I guess Duke was probably outside of CC. All right, so we are going to Perlin outside of CC for Banana Bread. Little does he know that actually now Duke gets a highlight for going to a second set of statues, a different second set of statues. So now they can actually be done. And we green Purloin, and it's not going to get caught for a little bit. Oh, are we going to? Okay, I thought we might return right there.
Yeah, so here's the thing. This is kind of like the gallery thing. Toby's been over there a while.
He does return. Okay, he got a green return.
Does.
Sorry.
Yes. But Dowsy can already be confident that it's no one on the right like this. That's what's big, is that they can be really confident it's someone in one of these two groups over here.
That is one thing that the UI needs, is it doesn't flash or anything when it says the return. It doesn't actually even say in the log that there's a green return, at least that I saw. So I was trying to see if he was going to try to return it. It actually seems like it would have been better if he just straight up returned it white style. Because I don't know if
Probably, yeah. Because, right, in this case, it gave him a chance to notice the kind of anti-reject chain, because he has noticed the return. And one of the reasons he noticed the return, by the way, is because he didn't take all those low lights on the right. I mentioned that he could have obviously been very confident that it happened on the left and that he could low light, 5 or 6 people on the right. He doesn't rush over to take all of them. And if he had, he wouldn't have noticed the other reject chain, so to speak, right? The return chain, which is ultimately what wins him the game. I actually didn't realize when I picked this game that we talked about this on cast, but it's worth analyzing in more detail anyway. What happens is, Dowsy's saying he didn't notice the return, but I think he told me, you told us in the chat when we did this cast that you did, or that she wasn't in the original reject chain at least, whatever it was. But what's interesting about that is he knows Rocker isn't in the reject chain, and that's the person Pofsky is trying to frame for the swap. So she's already low lit. Look, he goes to the statue. He's trying to fake a green swap onto Rocker. It doesn't work because Rocker is low lit for not being a Purloiner.
Interesting. Okay, but you're right that works if the list isn't noticed, because then you take away from the limiting factor of the Purloin. Because one of the things is, not only if you Purloin and swap, will you often not get away with it because it has 2 very strong hardtails associated with it. But if they know the group of people that could possibly swap or could possibly Purloin, the intersection between those 2 groups is very small, as opposed to something like swap and banana bread, for example.
Right. So it's actually, in my opinion, that's kind of the problem here. You're doing 2 moves that are risky in and of themselves and narrow the party down potentially a lot in and of themselves. You're Purloining, first of all, which can already narrow it down a lot. You're returning the list, which can narrow it down even more. And you're doing the fake green swap, which is an all-in on the 50-50. Like, you are betting at that point, yes, they're going to know it's one of these 2 people. I'm fine with that. And against a good sniper, you'll take those odds if it really is a 50-50 or even close to it. So that makes sense. But you're right. When you kind of Venn diagram the 2, there's a Purloin, and then it has to overlap with the return if they notice it at all. And then you're faking the swap. It's like, how many people could it be?
Yeah. So we mentioned the idea of like traces before. Those are the 3 missions that leave a specific trace. Contact is kind of a weird way to put trace, but like
Yeah.
they have a signal associated with them, right? That like
Yeah.
remains in the sniper's mind. And then
That's a great point. 3 missions are done, and they're all missions that the sniper potentially knows about.
Right, exactly, right. It's the one that actually calls your attention to them that leaves some sort of impact, where you can do the deductive play. I guess what I should say is it's the deductive ones where it's deductive down because you can get if you don't know an inspect has happened, but you can consider it deductive because if you know that they are going to inspect, you deduce down to that group and you only shoot someone who could both inspect and contact, for example. Or fingerprint, same thing. But this is the one that can eliminate suspects. You can't eliminate suspects with fingerprint or inspect. You can eliminate suspects with purloin, swap, and contact.
Yeah. And so I mentioned earlier, like you should have to start thinking at this point, what do you do without seduce? I think we have our answer. I mean, do they really play a game this wild and atypical if the seduction target isn't playing so hard to get?
Yeah, and so this game I really enjoyed because it brings I've been trying to work on the phrasing around like these different ideas. One of them is this game strikes me as it's a problem in coherence, where let's say we got away with it. Let's say we swapped. What was our next move? How were you going to do 2 more missions while we have contacted, swapped, and purloined? Like we've narrowed the party down to us and Rocker. Do we really think Rocker on any 5 of 8 map is going to do 4 other missions, or to be liable to do 4 other missions? That's really tough, even if you return the purloin. So, for example, to me, taking purloin and returning it, you are not framing. You are trying to win.
Yes,
you're
undercutting your own argument against Rocker. If you're building a case onto Rocker, you let the purloin continue showing, and then the sniper thinks, my God, 2 hardtails have happened, and if she goes to statues another time, that's just it.
Yes, exactly, right. Yes, the purloin undercuts the argument for someone needs to get shot. Now, I don't know if Rocker was in any sort of reject chain, but that puts plausibly into the mind of the sniper that something's gone on, right? Where it's kind of the party-wide frame of stuff is happening, you better shoot, because we've done the 3 things that we talked about before are shot-inducing, but the fact that we return the list isn't coherent with the rest of our gameplay. If we are trying to push the game in either we are we're basically going all in and someone getting shot. So if we're trying to get someone to get shot, purloining, returning doesn't make sense. Yeah, and so there's incoherent.
There's 2 issues here. One is that ideally, if you've just done the purloin, if you have some kind of reject chain, you really are waiting to frame someone who is in that chain for the swap. You're hoping they go to statues. That's pretty hard, I'll grant you, but that's the best way you can do that. But even if you don't do that, right, the next thing is, are you trying to finish or are you trying to induce a shot? And you're getting 2 different answers to that question here based on the mission choices. So that's a really good point.
Yeah, and so and that problem exists even if they white the return. Like, first of all, we talked about how the fact that greening a return it's kind of always bad. I'm trying to think of a situation in which
it's probably. Yeah.
Oh, just about. I mean, there are almost certainly edge cases where it's not bad, but it's almost like the reverse of we had that longer conversation about whether or not we'd want to have 100% green purloins or like 95, where I was pretty adamant that like 95 is like the sweet spot where you almost overwhelmingly do, but the 5% alone puts doubt in the sniper, blah, 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 blah.
Every drink taker can get low lit. Yeah,
exactly.
You don't have to worry about that.
But it's almost like the reverse for return. Like, technically, I guess, in the return, which is already a really small pool of things, then maybe there's like a 5% time you want this sort of like weird return thing, where it's like they're not sure about it. Because what return can do for you is either you never see the list gone, so it's super strong, because then you just think that there's another mission that hasn't been done, you're not going to include in your count, or you throw doubt into the sniper's mind. This is less true than it was when Purloin first came out, that the list was ever gone. Now, this was a lot easier in old art, because for sometimes like it was actually hard to see the list and if it was gone or not. It was just like, I don't know what happened. Like maybe it was just because we weren't used to it. But sometimes you'd think the list was gone, and you look back and it was there, and that was actually nothing had happened. You just
and you sort of talk yourself into it. Kind of the same way you can talk yourself into that statue didn't actually swap. I memorized it wrong, because like we'll all have that moment too. It's less common, I think, with the list, but I think the people who are really vulnerable to it, and this is why it's not a great play in general, is because it's sniper dependent. If you're the kind of sniper who really verifies and gets a good look, it's not going to work at all. They're going to be like, no, it was definitely gone. So now I've really narrowed it down. If you're the kind of sniper who does what I mentioned earlier, that moment where you zoom in real quick and just get a little sliver of the list and then get right back out, which is honestly how you normally want to do it. If you're like that, though, you're going to go, I didn't really look at it. I really went as quick as possible to try to verify that it was there or gone. And I reacted really quick in the moment. So now I'm not positive I saw it clearly.
Right. The other side, so the sort of the Yomi side, I guess you could say, of the return in this case is it makes it seem like they are trying to sneak in under the radar with the finish if you return it. So if you kind of like parse it out in terms of, well, why would they return? It's because they're going to be really trying to fly under the radar. So why would they go swap? The incoherence itself makes an argument for why it wouldn't be that person, but that's a couple levels up, and that's sort of like the confusion chaos argument, which sometimes absolutely works. Like there's been a bunch of times I've won games by just like doing random stuff near the end of the game and confusing the sniper where they're off balance, and they'll shoot someone they had previously known wasn't the spy just because they don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, it's just hard, that kind of thing you normally want to plan for. It's still, so the fact that so many good players still make mistakes, it's still an argument for they probably just screwed up, rather than overthink it into they're so good they would have never done that, so therefore they couldn't have returned it. Most of the time we all screw up enough that it still makes sense for the simplest thing to be true, which is they made a mistake.
Right.
Even in silver. So.
Okay.
Gold.
Yeah, let's go into gold.
And we have another library here. It's Yishinopi writes. This game was also cast. But how can you not pick it? Yeesh library, you get to see what they do. And we still will get to compare library a little bit more and kind of compare, some of the similarities and the differences between, I think it was that Iron Watch, right? Magic Doer as spy.
OP US, right? I know Yeesh EU.
Yep. Okay. OP writes is, yes, American. Yeesh is American also.
Oh, really? It has Yeesh as that's right. Why does it have Yeesh? Because Yeesh is Air Force. That's right. Why does it have Yeesh as EU in the database?
That must be. Where are you looking?
Well, it had it in the tooltip thing. So maybe it's something that I'm just doing wrong in the tooltip thing. It's not the database SCL database. I'm going off of the thing that autofills when I fill in Yeesh. But I'm using a little tool that nobody knows what I'm talking about, so I won't discuss it anymore.
Yeah, on the gold
and
library.
Gold.
I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, so make sure that I've changed everything. It looks good. Oh, I've not changed the spy, who is Hair again. Hair again on library, making me think that they're leaning into the strong microfilm animation some of the time. But I
have a thought about that, which I will launch into as soon as we start this game, actually.
Okay, starting in 3, 2, 1, go.
So Noob and I were talking a long time ago about the best or worst characters, things like that, and Noob made a really funny but perceptive joke where he said what you really need to do is you need to have a list of the best characters and the worst characters, and then you need a list for people who have seen that list. Because the second you reveal it, it changes, right? So you need 2 different lists, at least. How deep you want to go, it's up to you. So I'm just going to spoil it for everyone. Listen, people, Hair is not subtly, surprisingly good anymore. She's just good. The word is out. Because what people did was they said, okay, so Smallman's suspicious, Papa Danger's suspicious, blah, 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 whatever. Who's good but doesn't have the rep for it? And a lot of people seem to decide it's Hair. And I'm just here to tell you that it's been going on long enough that she's not a well-kept secret anymore. She's just a good spy, and we know. We know General's walking bugs are good. We know Irish's walking bugs are good. Her walking bugs are good, and her microfilms are pretty good, and her talking animation's all right, and all that. So, yes, Hair is a good spy, you guys. Not unbelievable. She's not Smallman, but we know she's good.
Yeah, and actually, like the and there we go with the microphone removal right there. It was a green, so it doesn't really matter too much. But we already have seduction done and the microphone removal. But that's actually like the sweet spot where it's like sometimes I'm nervous about picking the top tier spies.
Yes.
Almost sometimes where I just decide to random, and then I'm just like,
yes,
just take whatever spy I get. I can't think about this anymore because I'm getting myself into like a little Yomi hole.
Right. But random +1 is what we call it, where you random and you go, oh, well, not them, and then you hit it one more time. And sometimes that means you don't want a slow character on a big map or whatever. Very often, though, it specifically means I don't want Smallman. I don't want to play the kind of game where I have to do everything being stared at, right? I really want to complete under the wire or whatever. I want to play like a nice innocuous game. And it actually makes sense. Some characters are so suspicious or so extremely slow or so whatever that they are actually incompatible with certain game plans. So I actually totally support that. I think that's still, it's not true random as they call it, but it's still pretty close if you have a game plan and you're like, this character just doesn't work for it. But Hair works for everything.
Yeah, hair works for everything, and we get another green test. Ooh, Yeesh is on top of it, and behind pillar. I'm pretty sure. I'm actually gonna pause there for a second just to make sure, because we're not looking at it. So where is Sniper looking during this transfer? Just completely on the other side of the map, but interactive Sniper, I get to cheat over here. Yeah. Oh, Yeesh actually put this perfectly, actually. It's in the exact right spot.
Right, so what's interesting is, like, obviously we joke that the perfect library bug is the one that's happening on the other 2/3 of the screen, and it doesn't matter what it looks like, and a lot of really great bugs are wasted, and a lot of really bad bugs are clean because they're not looking, and that's totally cool. I don't really yell at anyone for anything on library because they're just thinking, maybe it's off screen, who cares? Totally fine to wonder about that. Sometimes, though, that is what you're betting on. You're basically betting on they're not looking. In this case, it's sort of a little bit of both. It's like if they're not looking, this is totally free. If they're sort of looking, I'm good. If they're staring right at it, then I'm caught. But who's going to be doing that? It's just not a profitable use of their attention. So Yeesh does something that could work regardless, and given how they do it, is just like really, really likely to work.
Yes, and then I like also how they position themselves, where if we did, I'm using the interactive sniper cam, if they did look over, if OP was looking over, they're not completely hidden where it's like almost not suspicious, because you can see about almost exactly half of Red Dress's body, but it's not the half that's going to have the moving arm. Even if you were staring directly at it, you can see the hand move if you're paying attention. But it's way difficult to see because you can see the hand like dip down for just a moment. Also, one of the things about Red Dress and her arm movement that's kind of like it's interesting is her skin tone is not all that different from her clothing. So her arm moving against her dress is one of the least different. Or like let's say like I'm looking at Twin right next to it. The white and the blue and his skin tone don't match up. So when he's moving his hand, it's more apparent that his hand is moving, right? Where people tend to be wearing clothes that are like pretty different from their skin tone. But one of the exceptions where their hand, there's like a clear distinction between their hand and the rest of them. Yeah. Hair has some of the least colored differences between the various parts of the body, right? And it's interesting.
And that matters. Yeah.
Yes. And it's a fascinating side topic. I guess Boots is sort of similar because Boots also doesn't have close. Boots also doesn't have like cuffs, I guess. I'm trying to figure out what to say. Where a lot of the spies have sleeves all the way up to their hands, and so their hands stick out way more than the rest of their body, except for like I guess Sari, Red Dress, and Boots. Oh, I guess White too, but she's got the watch. I'm getting way too into that particular thing.
That's okay. Well, let's talk about what the chat's talking about, which is specifically why did he highlight him for being at that green bookshelf? So I agree with what chat's saying in that it's very counterintuitive and kind of hard to figure out. But there is one potentially very simple explanation, which is simply that he sees someone at green bookshelf and briefly thinks, where did that book come from? And doesn't realize they're about to leave green bookshelf. They might think they're arriving, with the book already. And then it's just a highlight for, I don't know where that book came from. Maybe they took it from blue or yellow. So let's keep an eye on that. And then they do that and then immediately look somewhere else so that even though Hare puts the book back and clearly that logic doesn't apply anymore, not necessarily, they might have already moved on to other things. Either that or it's just good game planning. It's just, well, I expect Yeesh to microfilm here, or they like to go to green or something like that. But those are the only two explanations I can come up with at least.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe it was incorrect timing, but it's so hard to tell on Red Dress where her head is in her cycle. Yeah. It
doesn't look like it because it happens immediately when she comes back on screen while the microfilm is completely off screen. And that's what fits for me with the where did that book come from? Not realizing that they did not arrive with the book.
Gotcha.
That's my best guess, at least. So I don't know. But microfilm's done behind the pillar, right? So we jump to like, I don't know, maybe
I'm
say
at
a minute left.
Yeah, I'm at 2:20.
Well, nothing really happens until about a minute left because that's when they go back to statues. The seduce is done. The microfilm is already done from behind the pillar, kind of just walking around there, and then it goes into inspect swap in the last with about a minute left.
Okay, let me get over to that spot. There we go. Okay, so we get the microfilm done and then basically do nothing until inspect swap at the end. So.
Yeah, and there's nothing too crazy going on here, except that Opie is clearly thinking about shooting. Opie is actually... Ooh, I really like this. Okay. This is great. Let me know when you get to, 45 seconds.
Cool.
This is what... He should just put the statue down. Okay. So you just put the statue down. They've completed inspect their second visit, and they've green swapped. So I mentioned earlier that the thing about catching small men on Tayen was you have to lock onto them in case the swap comes off, right? And then you already have the shot, and you don't have to worry about anything else. That's what Opie's doing here, more or less. He's worried about the swap because one of his bigger suspects probably is at a second statue visit late and could be swapping to finish with 45 seconds left. It totally fits. So you can see Opie, even as they move away, and it's revealed that this is not a swap yet because it's a green swap, they were waiting for it so clearly that they zoom in and lock on just in case, like immediately, like they were just ready to do it. You see?
I see what you mean, right? Where
Yeah.
if they
It's like a double take.
right, where they are, if they realize it's done, they know their window of time to shoot is going to be that they need to be shooting right as soon as they realize it.
So they actually assume they're going to shoot until their brain sees the statue and takes that like half second to go like, okay, oh, it's a 3. It's still a 3. It's still a Falcon. And that happens after they actually zoom in and get ready to shoot, basically, like because it's all happening simultaneously. And then a low light picks up the statue, and that's always interesting, right? What do you want to happen here? Do you want another suspect to pick it up, or do you want a low light to pick it up? I think the argument for wanting a low light to pick it up is that you're not going to be watching very closely, but you can see Opie is watching very closely.
All right. So the only thing really left in that one is I was going to check out the twin, and like twin doesn't really ever hold a statue easy to see it. What's that?
No, yeah. So they swap it like at the last third of the first animation, and then they hold it at the waist, and then put it back down. So if they swap earlier in the animation, Opie wins that game and shoots air. If they don't put it down, but they do it through another cycle and hold it up, Opie wins that game. The only way Opie doesn't win that game from the looks of things is specifically Twin starts the swap near the end of the inspect, so it's not super visible, and then puts it down or holds it or does the statue cycle where they don't move. One of those two things. So if any of those things are different, I'm pretty sure Opie just wins because they were clearly very suspicious of the swap.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think Opie really made a mistake there. I think the mistake, I guess, is just sort of missing both microfilms. But everything else Yeesh did was just clean, and Opie played it pretty well, and they didn't shoot instinctively for the swap, right? They actually waited, and they were staring at it, and then there we go.
All right. Well, I don't have anything else to say. That was just a clean game. I like the big play of the game. Obviously, was the microfilm, and then the swap, and then otherwise just nice clean game by Yeesh.
Yeah, I think so. All right, Platinum. It's another library game. And this is Noob and Falcon Hit.
All right. Let me get it all ready.
Yeah, and I think almost everyone in chat already knows about the history, but just for posterity, Noob and Falcon Hit just keep meeting in the finals over and over again. They've met in the finals of one division or another 3 straight years. Falcon Hit won the first 2 with room to spare. Noob finally got over the hump last season in one of the more dramatic sets we've ever cast. The gold finals literally were 8-8. So Noob won by virtue of being the first seed, which meant we had the what I call the golden game. We went into the last game knowing for a fact that it determined everything because there's no tiebreaker, right? 8-8 wins and 7-9 loses. We knew for a fact this game is for the whole thing. And Noob held his shot in a very dramatic game on Modern. Falcon Hit was queen, as I recall. So a lot of dramatic queen Modern games in SCL last season.
Indeed. All right, so maybe it's because they're both British subjects at one point. I don't know. But go ahead and start in 3, 2, 1, playing it.
And Noob, let's say a cheeky spy in general, and a particularly cheeky spy on library, and a particularly cheeky spy on library against Falcon Hit. These games are always pretty goofy.
And Taft just has particularly great cheeks.
Yeah, and he's good at a lot of stuff here, man. He's quick, he can body block, can't really hide behind the pillar exactly, but he has the right color.
Mm-hmm. All right, so right now we are chasing a bit. Ooh, we can get this flirt.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a risk, but it's low risk though too. I like it.
All right, so what are we setting up for? It's interesting because this is out in the middle of nowhere, but it's at one of the peak points. Ooh, are we gonna do anything? I think right now we're just threatening. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's just not a good enough time. And if you look at the sniper camera, you can see that Falcon Hit is like whipping around a lot. And Noob at this point knows Falcon Hit sniper. He's probably seen enough of these replays to know how Falcon Hit plays library. I mean, I realize a lot of people whip around on library, but let's face it, some people really do it. They think of it like courtyard, where it's like almost like a rotation. They instinctively whip back and
Banana
forth,
bread.
check mission sites over and over again. Some dawdle in one area more than others. Falcon Hit is not doing that at all. Falcon Hit is really moving around a lot.
Yeah. I had a specific thing I was gonna say about that, but like, I'm kind of like this one. I'm doing mental research in my head because these are opponents, and so I'm doing like the least like flexible and just like kind of thinking about it abstractly because now I'm trying to try to poke prod.
Yeah,
for
you don't
weaknesses.
want to be like, oh, you see what he did right there? I'm super vulnerable to those. I never catch that.
Yeah. Okay. So we're probably gonna have to time it at some point. We are gonna get this bug probably. Yeah. Not much to show
Okay,
there except for the dip.
Super cool. Okay, so it's 2.5 minutes. Here's what I love about this bug. Clearly, we're idling a lot, and knowing Noob, he's going to time out at some point and draw the game out and all that stuff, and maybe get the civ shot. Fine. But when you get the bug, and if you're confident you got away with it, when that bug happens, will totally determine how you react to it. Because if you're idling like all game and you get a bug with a minute left on library, you're not going to like rush 3.5 or 4 missions. Like that doesn't really make sense for the most part. Maybe a timeout, whatever. If it happens on ballroom, maybe. If it happens on high rise or balcony, the game's already over. Blah blah blah. Here, you get it with 2.5 minutes, so you actually could mix up your game plan and try to finish if you wanted to. But we see that Noob does not do that. Like maybe he'll still try to finish. We'll see what happens later. He does time ad, but the bug doesn't like cause him to start like rushing to a mission site or whatever to finish.
Indeed. And right now because we have Orange Dress as seduction target, she's gonna be spending a lot of time in transit, and we're probably gonna have to time that sooner rather than later. Yeah, here we go. I think we're gonna do it right now. Oh well, yes. I also have I'm off of caster mode, so I can see now into the future.
It's full of dead spies, isn't it?
The thing is, like, there's so many because right now we've only had the bug done and seduction done. There's so many paths still available to us. We stopped talking a lot, which is something that Noob does a lot, and also that Noob knows that I know that he does. So no giving away strats on that one.
Yeah,
especially on library, because it just stop talking resets the amount of time until you can leave again, basically. Although it looks like he might be trying to time out for. Oh no, he does leave after just a little bit.
So what's interesting about the Purloin is this is still consistent with the frame. Like, the bug is consistent with the complete, the Purloin's consistent with the frame, and if he gets the flirt done, now that the BB's gone off, he can do either one. Like, he has somehow straddled this line, like, really, really well, where he can frame, wait for a shot, he's given Falcon Hit reason to shoot, and if it doesn't work, he can still finish. Like, look at this. He's about to have 4 missions done, the Purloin's just gone off. This could go, oh, well, the ST leaving hurts for sure, but you're still in a really good position here. This is lining up better. Normally you can play like a high-rise game like this or something, or maybe even a ballroom game where you sort of hold the possibility of framing or completing simultaneously until the last minute. It's so weird to have that happen on library, though, given how much you have to do.
All right, and so Papa Danger gets shot. So I was a little bit off sync with you for a bit there. I was pondering other things, so I didn't see the Purloin. So I'm gonna go back and look at the timing of the Purloin. Oh, it's just conjoined with the banana bread. So again, like we had talked about before, using the banana bread to like offering the trade, as you put it before. Yep. You can either take the easy part of the trade, which is getting the lowlights, looking around for real, but you acknowledge that you might be giving something up as far as like a Purloin at that point, right?
So the lowlights are cash in the bet you've already won, and looking for the hardtail, sort of like letting it ride. Like, the lowlights are safe. You know you can get them, and they help you whittle down the party. The problem is you could go that way. You could say, okay, I'm going to stare at the list or the ambassador or statues or whatever to see what happens after the BB, see if it's in the wake of something, and then they just don't do it. Most BBs are not covering for something still. It's very common to cover for things with BB, but the majority of BBs are just BBs. So then you feel dumb. You missed maybe a couple of lowlights because you were busy staring at the list afterwards rather than getting all the lowlights you could.
Yes, and that is something that I try to emphasize in my own spy game is making BBs a huge moment of stress for the sniper. Making them just like, because otherwise, if you just BB normally and don't ever do anything with it, it's very comforting to get the BB. It's like we talked about before. It gives you some sort of signal about where they are in the game. It gives you lowlights. It's great. You feel good when a BB goes off. but not if you know that the other person uses it to cover up their things, because then all of a sudden the next 5-10 seconds are extremely stressful because you're worried about them finishing, you're worried about them covering with something, you're worried about the fact that you might not be getting lowlights you should be getting, and it's like all of my spy game is almost about creating pressure points where I actually do need to get better at the continuous normal progress game, just as a threat.
Right, because so like threat suspicion, making the sniper uncomfortable, not actually a threat. It might be valuable, but in and of itself does not win the game necessarily, right? But I like what you said a lot there about like it feels good when the BB goes off, because it's one of those rare peeks behind the curtain. At that moment, you have firm information in a game that almost never gives you firm information. So it's just really satisfying. It's like, oh yeah, there's another human being here. I've had, I have confirmation that there's a person on the other end and they're doing things. And it's kind of like when you get those logic problems and then they give you a couple of facts to start off with, and you really like rest on those, right? You try to build out from those facts, kind of like taking the corners in a puzzle to start. Like you take the sure, safe thing and you build from that. A BB is like hard information that cannot be quote unquote faked, for lack of a better word. It's actual hard information. And that is so refreshing in a game where this person's trying to trick you the whole freaking time.
All right, so just
Oh,
looking.
so we should talk a little bit about Papa getting shot there. He's kind of theoretically in the reject chain, I think. There, right? Yeah.
Well,
he's behind the pillar.
Papa's the taker, I think.
He's the rejector and the taker. So that's what's weird about this. Yeah.
Wait. No, sorry. Yeah. It is the reject, and then he takes another drink after that. Yeah.
Yes. Right. So it's kind of weird. So that actually shouldn't work. Which is he getting shot for, right? One of the two makes sense potentially. If it's both, if he notices the reject and the take, then it doesn't make sense. So Noob may be trying to frame Papa, but it actually doesn't work, or shouldn't have worked, because he takes the drink anyway and then gets shot. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, it is weird, but then again, like it just lines up well. The thing is, it's kind of an early shot, honestly. Like there's not
there's been a time
that much going on. That's true. I guess that's true.
Right. So he shoots at 55 seconds. If you take the 45, it's 10 seconds. I know that's a little simplistic way to look at it, but we talk a lot about like the sniper's internal clock, and your internal clock, it's already kind of screaming under a minute on library that, Purloin's gone, and there's been a BB, so maybe someone's done. But, knock another 45 off and oof.
All right. Well, the thing is, like, I feel bad because we spent so much time on the earlier games, and now we're kind of like flying through these other games. But I actually don't have that much more to say about that one. So
no, I think it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
We're also getting more efficient at talking about them, to our credit, I think.
Well, also, like, when I know that on the first few games, I also wanted to get a lot of things off my mind. Like, we talked about the I love this. I love the way that Taft talks sometimes. He just looks fantastic. I love his eyes. I love his mustache. Sorry, I'm just zooming in on random parts of Taft.
You sound downright enamored with this man.
Yes. But we also talked about like the threat versus suspicion distinction pretty early on into the set. And that was one of the things I kind of wanted to get out of the way, is I've been enjoying seeing that conversation play out. So it doesn't have to do with the games themselves that much, but also things that have been in my mind in SpyParty, which is why I like the Slowcast, because I get to just like say anything about them. And also, I didn't even think about this. This is like who are the statues on the backside of library of?
Yeah.
Like
so you
Churchill,
can see,
maybe?
Yeah, no, you can see the names on them if you zoom in. They're generally, it's like famous prison reformers and things like that. Jeremy Bentham's there for inventing the panopticon.
Oh, no, not those people. I mean, if you turn all the way around and you look where the sniper's at, there are 4 statues.
Oh.
Like
I don't know those ones offhand.
If you do free cam, and I don't see like little things, right? So I see, because again, they're like, we should actually talk about that real quick. Because they're great reformers. Elizabeth Fry, that one's Bentham. Who's over here? That is Sophie Turner. Is that one, or not Sophie Turner? Dorothy.
Listen, I know the premiere's in 8 days. I know we've all got it on the brain, but
John Howard. It's funny because I don't even watch that show. But I just
matter.
think
Can't escape it.
It's goddamn Google, dude. Google just like gives me like stuff, or it's like, all right, whatever. But I don't know who these people are back over here. They must be someone. Like,
yeah, I don't know. We'll have to ask checks.
They don't have pedestal, or they don't have names on them, so it's confusing. All right, on to the next game.
Yeah, this is well, just because I had to pick it. KCM on Modern. It's always interesting. It's always exciting. Um, Modern is all about pacing. KCM, in my opinion, is the best pacing of any spy. Therefore, I love KCM Modern games.
Uh, yeah, that sounds plausible to me.
Really hard to frame here. It's not. There's like there just aren't as many escape routes for the spy. And balcony, it's like you could do nothing and you're going to win a good chunk of the games because AIs can complete and it's hard not to shoot sometimes. On ballroom, they're not going to be sure if they saw the bug, or you can just purloin in BB and maybe hope for the best. There are so many ways to win on so many of these venues potentially. On modern, it's just really hard to frame someone or get someone shot or whatever. You just need so much help and there's so much space, and the sniper has such a good broad view of everything. Generally speaking, it's like put up or shut up. Do your missions, get them done, space it out, get it done in full view, without that much occlusion, really, relative to how much you have to get done. It's just like it's a high wire spy act. So I really like seeing top spies try to run that gauntlet.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. We have KCM on Plane Twin versus Canadian Bacon on Sniper. Starting in 3, 2, 1, go. And I do think you're right that that is a great reason to pick modern KCM games, because you have to plan from the beginning. You have to put things in motion from very early on, because so you can't waste time on modern, and it's hard to also get time. You kind of have to. It's weird. You have to plan your time ads if you're going to do them.
Yeah, and you need to have a really good sense of character speed. That actually goes back to the gallery thing. People routinely forget how long it takes to actually do things, to walk to it, and because you need to pause before you pick up the statue and pause before you walk away and all that stuff, it adds up. They think, oh, I can be over statues in 5 seconds. But if they really want to inspect, it's like 15. So there's a lot of stuff where you just kind of need to have it in the back of your head of how long things actually take in the real world. You can't just ballpark it as much.
And something that is relevant in gallery and also relevant to what we're doing right now is so we talk about like taking the laundering the book by taking it outside on gallery. Even doing that,
Yes.
even if you do it as fast as you can, that is still like 30 seconds of walking from the
Yes.
bookcase
Yeah.
out to the window and then directly back into the other bookcase, which would be very suspicious. That's still like 30 seconds for that mission, if not more.
I think what happens is people will play a lot of the same venues sometimes when they're quote unquote growing up. Like we played a ton of ballroom, right? Ballroom was sort of the venue, and then you adjusted to other ones. And I think there can be like a downside to that, which is you have this idea of I only need to do one more thing, or I only need to do two more things, so that should take about this amount of time. But then you go to Veranda or Gallery or Modern or something, and it's like, okay, it doesn't matter that it's one more thing if that thing is across a giant map. So like Checker had a match the other day where he was on pub. He needed to walk away from statues and go get just a flirt to win. But he was on the back statue in pub, and the other person was on the far conversation. So it took him 15 to 16 seconds to make a beeline for the flirt, right? Like it almost wasn't enough time. So you need to be thinking about time and not number of things, which I think subtly we kind of think number of things.
Yes, right. Because you're not considering it for like the quickness of it. Oh,
Yeah.
it's actually
Ballroom, one
close.
more flirt is never more than 7 or 8 seconds away, ever. On Modern or Pub or whatever, it can be 15 or 16. So, by the way, KCM already done with flirt and did the microfilm. He did basically what you mentioned, right? He walked away with a book, talked for a while, bided some time, laundered it, puts it back.
Yeah, and there's not many missions that you can. That basically the missions that you can do concurrent kind of progress on is seduction, or the seduction timer, where you can merge in some of your. I want to talk about that bug, and I'm going to pause. I want to talk about that bug.
Yeah. This is not a live cast. You can do whatever you want. That's the whole point.
So the first thing we're talking about is the vague general idea that we tend to talk about is as sequencing, doing microfilm before something else suspicious. Yes, you could get caught and shot for it, but doing it later and getting caught and shot for it is more likely, or at least to get caught for it. So if you're going to do microfilm, do it before you get a highlight. It's easier to track you, that sort of thing, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then we do get a little bit, we kind of make our own luck here, where Orange Dress is coming in the conversation and then chooses a spot right next to us for us to get a easy seduction target. We hit the green actually anyway, so it was going to happen regardless, but we were going to be finishing with a white there anyway. And that leads into us able to do the bug. Now, one thing that I really appreciate about this bug is we don't start it too early. A lot of the time, people will spam the bug button, And if
Yes.
you're going to do the curl around bug, it would be bad to start as soon as you can, because we'd be
Yes.
about a couple steps out. But we don't. We start when we're all the way behind, and so the arm is buried in Taft the entire time because we didn't start too early.
Yes. There's also something else I like about this. I don't want to give too much credit. I don't even know if this is intentional, but you can see out the very end, he actually kind of walks away so that he can do this really hard turn into conversation at the end, like a really sharp turn. You see it?
Mhm.
I don't know if this is deliberate or not, but it's almost like because he's kind of farther away and does that snap, it's almost like I wasn't actually that close. Like I was actually taking a wider path around him. That's why I have to do such a hard turn to get back into the conversation there at the end. So maybe it kind of creates the illusion that they weren't right up against them and that they were actually had a little bit of distance, because otherwise they wouldn't need to turn like that at the end.
He also does an immediate talk, because it does throw some not really confusion, but the arms being moving around where sometimes you'll think, I swear I saw movement from them that was not their idle animation. Maybe they will think that it was part of their talking animation at the beginning of it, right?
Yeah. So about a year and a half ago, I don't know if I was still in gold or maybe I was in plat or whatever, but like I remember thinking this was like one of my tricks. It is definitely not my trick alone, and it's definitely not my trick anymore. The talk right after the bug. And for exactly the reason you mentioned, like any weird movement that didn't look quite right to them, they're like, oh, maybe it was just the talking animation, fine. And I felt so smart and good for coming up with that. And then someone else like did it to me, and I was like, okay, so at least a few other people have independently discovered this, and now it's like a meme. Like now it's just really obvious. The secret is totally out. Like like with hair.
Right. Okay, so I also want to think just like high level strategy wise. We have no partial progress on anything. What do we do from here? It looks like it's just going to be inspect, and I'm assuming contact, because right now we don't have a highlight, but it's bacon. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, this is where. So I think what you do at this point, this is actually a more interesting decision than it appears to be. So you're right. There's about 2 minutes left. You've gotten away with 2 hardtails already. So you could contact and inspect. This is where it is all about who you're playing. Because if they lean heavily on who could be done with inspects, like a lot of snipers do, like Kaylee does certainly, a lot of camping snipers do that, then that's actually pretty risky. That's pretty risky, especially if they're vaguely suspicious of the microfilm or the bug already, let alone both. A lot of times you want to avoid those statue visits. But Bacon's not like that. He's just not going to sit on those. He's not just going to rotely highlight for statues. So it's a lot more effective. I think this is the kind of decision that makes sense given the sniper he's playing. If he were playing Kaylee, I think he'd be statueless this game.
Good point.
And KCM in general likes to avoid the obvious thing. Like he really does. He likes to go silent if he can, but he really likes to avoid inspects because they're boring, they're obvious, they're a crutch for the sniper, because at the end of most modern games, if you assume the spy's going to finish inspects, you have it down to 4 people maybe, like just automatically. So if you deny them that, it can be very powerful, and KCM definitely understands that.
Indeed. Okay, so let's go back over the sequencing of this game. So basically, okay, so one thing that I like about this is this is a game that is has no trace in it except for the contact. There's no swap. Yes. And there's no purloin. So there's the least pressure on Bacon to shoot. This is a very coherent mission. Like if you look at the end, like you didn't see anything that happened beforehand. You look at these 5 missions. They're done basically in the order that one would recommend them, right? You did the things that would get you suspicion.
Good point.
After, right? You did the things that would have gotten you suspicion, where suspicion makes it more obvious that you did them with a highlight before you would have gotten those highlights. You did the bug and the transfer before inspecting or contacting.
Yep. Great point. So that's kind of textbook in a way. And it's textbook in a way that it doesn't matter if you know it's textbook. Like I mentioned earlier that like everybody knows that BB will cover for a hardtail sometimes, and it still makes sense to do it, even though everyone knows, because it's not about deception, it's about the trade, right? So it's kind of the same thing here. Like everybody knows that theoretically it's a lot better to do these kinds of things earlier in the game, especially for someone who's highlights for statues, right? You want to do the bug before the statue highlight or whatever. Bacon doesn't do that, but it still kind of makes sense to do things like that before the inspects or the BB. And even knowing that it's true, even though Bacon knows that he knows that, it still makes sense. It's just good spy play. There are such things as like strategies that people will lean on, things that if they know you're going to do them, you're in trouble. And there are things they can know you might want to do, and it's still worth doing. And this is an example of that. It's just like, it's almost just the right way to play.
Yes. To put a finer point on it, if you planned before your game that you're going to do these 5 missions, let's say you did it the other way around, which a lot of people just intuitively do. I know that I slip into this too much, where I kind of prefer, if I could just play on feeling and not on what the sniper would catch, I would rather get my soft tails out of the way early, because just so I have the most options near the end of the game, and I can see how the party's progressing, and I can figure out what I can get away with or not. Also, it just feels bad to be shot without getting many missions done. But, you know, like getting shot with, like, just all you did was the bug and you just get shot feels worse than like getting shot in the countdown timer. Even though it's the same outcome. It is the same thing.
That is so true, and it's so true in sports. That's actually, I'm going to step on another article I'm planning, potentially, that has a relationship to coaches in sports that I've always found very interesting, and there might be an article there too. Specifically, if a coach is like down by a certain number of points late in like a football game or whatever, if you watch the way they actually manage their team, the things they will do seem to be less about winning the game and more about delaying the point at which the game is lost, which is not the same thing. It's often the same thing, but it's not. And there's a psychological thing there. It feels better to do your 3 soft tails, have a minute left, try a bug, miss, and get shot, than it does to just do a bug in 10 seconds and get shot for it. Like, you feel like, I didn't even test them, right? They just shot me. It was easy. It was stupid. You feel like those missions, the partial progress, are worth something, even though they're literally not, even though the shot wipes out all your progress. And the funny thing is, on one hand, what you're saying, it sounds really irrational, right? Like, a loss is a loss. And there's a degree to which that psychological aspect is definitely crap and you need to ignore it and just focus on winning the game. But there is one little exception, and that is the mental stamina aspect. If you make them play the whole game and watch for everything and know that the pivotal moment could come at the end, that's going to put a strain on a sniper, especially one who relies on memory or camping or anything that requires a lot of precision, a strain on them that a 10-second time of chaos bug game is just not going to do. That's a relief for them. So I'm actually not sure what side I come down on. On one hand, it's clearly psychologically irrational to think of those missions as being valuable when you still lose. On the other hand, I think they could pay off later in long matches.
Yeah, and I would say that something about SpyParty, and this is not something that I'm necessarily sure is true. Lack of confidence seems to be more important than presence of confidence. Like, if I'm feeling really good about my play, I don't play. The marginal difference between my normal play isn't going to be that much better than the marginal difference where if I feel really bad, how much worse I play if I feel like I'm doing poorly. I feel like I'm phrasing that badly, but
yeah, take another crack at it. I want to understand this for sure.
I play the difference between my play when I feel good and feel confident is smaller than if I feel bad and doing poorly. So if I'm playing, if I could play 5 games, if I could play 10 games at just like neutral confidence, or 5 games at really not confident and 5 games extremely confident, I would take the 10 games at neutral confidence, because the feeling bad about it affects me more negatively than feeling good about it affects me positively.
Right. And that's like a general psychological principle, is that people fear loss more than they value gain. They remember losses more. 1 loss can wipe out 10 wins, all that stuff. I joke with Drawn that we'll play like a balcony set and I'll win the first 9 games, and then the 10th one, he'll beat me with a time ad and a bug, and I feel like I've lost the set. Because he just whooped me in such a weird way. And just because the process of losing, and not just being beat, but losing, like you beat yourself maybe even, that feels worse than winning feels good almost every time. Yeah. And there's actually a strategic aspect to it. It's not just psychological. So I talk a lot about playing a marginal game, and that kind of fits with the 3 missions and then take your risk kind of school of thought. You obviously can't do that every time. Like, I force myself to mix it up because obviously you can't be that predictable. But it's okay to have like a general leaning. And I think that's valuable because here's another thing. It's not just about mental taxation on the sniper. While you're doing your 3 missions, AIs are doing a bunch of crap. Sometimes they're just going to do stuff and get shot just because the game didn't end early. If you bug in a time of chaos, get caught, you never know what the AIs were going to do. You never know if they were going to give the sniper a really difficult decision and they were going to shoot a civ. So just by letting the game play out more and using more of your clock, you create more civ shot opportunities than you would have otherwise. And by drawing the game out, you get to see more. You get to see more about what the sniper reacts to, and you give the party more opportunities to help you. So I think there is, if all else is equal, which it isn't, but if it were, longer games better for the spy. Yeah. So I actually do think there is something to drawing those games out with soft tails sometimes.
Yeah, but I guess the main thing I'll try to draw is I think we value that one more, where too much relative to the getting it under the radar and just losing. But you're absolutely right, because that's a sort of intuitive thing you feel is like, well, if you got shot early, then you miss out on the times where NAI does something crazy and gets themselves killed, and you get bailed out by something.
Yeah,
The other
it
thing
just happens.
The other thing that happens is sometimes we'll see quote unquote like really boring high level plays where it's like there'll be a bunch of sniper sniper wins in high level play that just end really quickly, but their presence means they're playing at a high level because they're trying to do those hard tells early, where you might imagine that the highest level game, sort of like if it was a true fighting game, which actually now the thing is I don't actually know, but when I imagine a fighting game at a high level, I don't imagine many like stomp matches. But now that I think about it, that's not true, so that's not a good analogy. I'll go back to football.
No, but I know what you mean, because like the high level is I'm going to bet my game on this because they might not be expecting it, and I'm also not going to fall into a pattern. So the fact that they do something kind of crazy like that or strange like that, rather than play the same slow, drawn-out game every time, that itself means they're playing at a high level, because how you play at a high level over a match or even a career is not the same thing as playing at a high level in one game for the whole thing.
Right. And I guess because also the way that almost all sports work, their comebacks have to be incremental, not all at once. It's not like in a baseball game you're down by 10 runs, but if you're able to, take the umpire's mask without them noticing, you win the game automatically. It doesn't have those sort of like gambity things where we feel like when you're behind and you lose badly, it's because you were behind significantly the entire time and it's a long drawn out thing, rather than something that can come together into a win all at once.
Yes. Yeah, no, you're right. It's like a steady thing usually. You want to try to come back all at once psychologically, but that's not really how it's done. It's usually steady progress.
All right. This was awesome. I don't think anything else really to say. This went pretty well. I also liked the format, even though, as we mentioned, the beginning matches were annoyingly good.
Yes, this is a really good idea, but the beginning matches were too good. I will endeavor to find worse games for us to cast next time at the lower levels. And I do like the idea. I hope you guys do too. Hit us up on Discord or in chat here even, or on the VOD later, and let us know if you want to see more like this. Or specifically, I think I'm pretty enamored with the idea of let's pick a venue and go through each division in that venue.
I think that's really smart. And especially if we could find people that we know specialize in, so we can kind of like think about the thought process they have in the map in particular, because I think that that's great. And not only great, useful for competitive, like selfishly, I want to do it so that I can get better at the game.
Yeah, so already, I think Platinum opponents, whichever venue we do this on next, that's the one he's worried about. Just heads up.
Yeah, it's like we need. I mean, basically, we should probably do it. Well, I guess we can't even do aquarium yet, because it's not in there
I don't
yet,
know. I don't know.
A little funky.
I think we should let the next half of the SEL season sort of figure that out for us and do it in the off season. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us. I am Slappy. This is Warning Track. You can find more information on SpyParty Fans on Twitter. What else is SpyParty Fans? Oh, well, SpyPartyFans.com. In particular,
.com, the original. Yeah, the Twitter is just derivative of the .com, really.
Is that true, actually? Which one came first?
Oh, yeah. No, I bought the domain. I actually was thinking about other domains, and I was like arguing with myself about what name to pick even back in the day. Like, do I pick like a goofy, funny, like insidery one, or do I just pick like a kind of bland, boring one? And well, I picked the bland, boring one. Sorry, but it seems to work okay.
It's funny because that matches up exactly with what I know with you and your movie site, where it's like you pick the most practical one.
Yes, a very pragmatic, just like the spy game I was just defending. It's the pragmatism, man. It's the pragmatism. Although, when keywords and search engines are involved, you got to put the thumb on the scale a little more. But one thing I definitely want to say is if you're watching this and you're not already subscribed to this channel, please subscribe to it or subscribe. I don't have subscriptions. I'm not about that, but hit follow, because you will get more casts like this. We're in the middle of the season, so you're going to get plenty of them, but you're not going to get bombarded, with daily casts or anything. And everything you get will be stuff like this. So if you like this, you will like the other stuff.
Indeed. And basically the things that make their way into the blog are like, one, they're vetted for quality, and they are sort of like the things that bubble up from the community at large. Sometimes I actually wish we had more forum engagement, because it's really easy to miss things in Discord, which is where most of the discussion happens. I love the fact that things get put up on the blog, because that is actually something that you can return to and elaborate on for a long time. You can link it, people can refer to it. That's why I also like the definition of these things, like these terms that we've been talking about forever but not actually codified, is that they can become a foundation for further discussion. And that's hopefully something that these kind of casts as well provide for people.
I think so, and thank you for suggesting this and for doing it with me.
No problem. All right, well, I will go ahead and put on the official music, and yeah, I will hopefully do this again soon.
Yeah, we gonna take this slow. We just gonna peel it back layer by layer. Yeah, we gonna take this slow. We just gonna peel it back layer by layer. Yeah, we gonna take this slow. We just gonna peel it back layer by layer. Yeah, we gonna take this slow. We just gonna peel it back layer by layer. Yeah, we gonna take this slow. We just gonna peel it back layer by layer. Yeah, we gonna take this slow. We just gonna peel it back layer by layer. Yeah, we gonna take this slow. We just gonna peel it back layer.